Hey everybody, another good day for Shuffleboard, and I'm excited today. We're building a startup live on YouTube. Today we have count them, two usability tests with potential customers, people who might fall into my potential customer thing. So that's very exciting. They just happen to line up that way schedule-wise. It's exciting also because we had our sort of soft video launch last time, and I'm very happy that's over, and I'm excited to just get back to building stuff and talking to people. So before we have our stuff today, I just want to go through and do a little bit of a dry run in the app itself. I had shared these videos with somebody and there was mention of maybe another permission denied error. So I want to go and see if I can investigate and figure that out. And I just want to make sure things are in order for our video test and just kind of get the mental shuffleboard space back in. So if this ends up being really boring, maybe it'll end up being really boring. You can just skip ahead to the part where the videos happen sooner. I'm gonna start by opening up my code editor here, open up the Shuffleboard project. We're gonna run it and we're gonna see how it's working. Well, I broke my computer. All right, Shuffleboard app. Z shell is new. Start it up. Let's pull up our Asana. Let's see where we're at. Backlog wise. Show. Hey, Christina, I think I mentioned wanting to schedule a test with Christina. Well, guess what? We're doing it today. Done. I'm going to add some other people here. Liza. Two people that I think might be also really interesting to talk to. I'm on this new Asana. Can't see my tags. Oh my God, there's two David K's. I gotta say, those aren't really their names, but that'll help me. All right, this is gonna get bumped down a bit. Do you want to do that maybe opportunistically? This is in progress. Shuffleboard, hey, we got a favicon now. That's cool. Ooh, I happen to know that, get this developer tools up and running here. I saw a couple things. Let's see, that's looking good. Oh, that part is not looking great. Let's see if we can fix that. What is that? There we go. Quick fix. Just getting the blood moving, you know? It'll warm up. Swing. Okay. This is our app. I don't even know how important mobile styles are. I mean, it's probably pretty important to be able to just spin this up, but for our test, it's not that important. Oh, it's looking pretty good though. Cool app, guys. All right, let's see here. Oh, my computer's cooking away. Feedback. I might do that. Okay, let's try to break this play mode with this whole could not whatever. You know what I mean? Like where there's this whole thing where permissions test. Let's spin up permissions test and see what happens. That took a fair moment. A lot of work or a little work? This is a total distraction. Gotta do this later. Permissions test, welcome. Anonymous. Okay. And I'm going to do another one where I sign in as myself, my personal account. And I guess I'm signed in already. Let's make sure we're gonna break on error. Pause on exception rather, what I meant. Okay, well, we got one. Why? I am updating a card that was Sam's idea. Okay, well, we got a bug. That sucks. Oh, come on, what? Yeah, you guys got some work to do with this. Revealing card contents for logged in Google user results in permissions error. That's a problem. Now, here's the real test. Shit. Why? Okay, it's not about logged in Google user or anon. So how did this ever work? I thought it was going to be like dependent on which sign-in thing you had. All right, let's figure it out. Let's look at our rules and our rule tests. Okay, what are our card rules? Right, you can't update the card unless you created it. So how did this ever work? That's the funniest part about bugs. You understand why it's broken, you just don't understand how you could ever have even built this feature in the first place. All right. Oh, we gotta break this into multiple files. Okay. List of cards. Let me read a single card if they have the board ID and card ID. Let anyone read a single card if they have the board ID and card ID. All right, I gotta leave in like a little more than an hour, so hopefully we get through this. Is there an anon here at all? Writing cards. So people create cards they wrote on any board. Should not let non-auth users create cards. Great. Should not let people create cards they did not write. So we're missing some editing cards stuff. Should let people edit cards they wrote. That's something that should happen. It should let people edit cards in if they're a member of the org. That's a little bit fuzzy, but if you remember the org, you can edit, you know, whatever. You should trust the people you're working with. Should not let people edit cards if they're not the author or a member of the org. Okay. What's our emulator? Oh, by the way, I had decided generally that when I deploy to live, I also want to deploy to stage. So I'm going to do this. Hopefully that'll work. Downloading a jar. Wow, and incredibly slow. All right. Java. Whatever, we gotta write these rules anyway. Okay, should let people edit cards they wrote. So what's our initial conditions here? Bob card. Else board cards. Add. Okay, so there's a couple cards from Bob. There's also a card from Alice. We're on Alice's organization right now. Okay, so should let people edit cards they wrote. Assert succeeds. And who wrote it? Let's say on their own board. So let's say Alice. Cards. Doc, Alice card. And we'll say update. Is that how we do edits in general? On these tests? I think we use set most of the time, looks like. Should let people edit cards they wrote on other people's boards. So this is actually Bob in Alice's board. Bob card. Okay. If they're running the meeting, should let people edit cards. If they're a member of the org, should let people edit cards. Okay, so if Alice is running this meeting, she needs to be able search succeeds. Alice orgs, Alice board, cards, doc, Bob card, set, should not let people edit cards if they're not a member of the board. Okay. So, what should fail? Bob. Bob's collection. Bob's is on Alice's board. Collection cards doc Alice card. So if Bob tries to edit bunch of card edits, okay. This is still downloading, but maybe that'll be good to run. So I think those are good tests. Now we actually have to write the rules to make sure the tests work. Okay, update if you'd made it, or user is member of org. Will that just work? I allowed a card to be updated if the user equals resource data dot created by. That's coming from the card. Or user is member of org, organization ID, which comes from this nested thing, which is our whole kerfluffle. Seems right to me. Okay. Well, I'm curious to see what happens when we run this. Curious to see what happens when you run this too. While we're waiting, let's see what else we can work on. Let's say it's in progress. This needs a bug tag officially. How do I add tags? Tab T. Wait, that's not. Okay, fix absolute path. Oh, this might be a fun one. Did we already do this? Well, we just looked at this. Let's call it good. Fix absolute path. That's pretty useful. Ooh, I don't know what that is. Wait, what am I looking at? Let's Google this. Okay. jsconfig.json. Oh, we already got it. You already did this? Yeah, we did. These URLs. Then what are we doing here? Does it not work? Call it good. Let's check on our download. Nice, emulator's running. Okay, npm test. See what we get. Ooh, that didn't look good. We got a few missing here. 2 failing. Cards, writing cards, should let people edit cards they wrote on their own board. And should let people edit cards if they're a member of the org. Why does that have a question mark? Oh, that should be a cert 16. should let people edit cards if they're a member of the org. Alice is a member of her org, and she's editing Bob's card. Okay, so that might be as simple as that. Should let people edit cards they wrote on their own board. That didn't work. Property created by is undefined. Oh, because we're trying to set it, but we need to. You can't just set it. You have to just. We should be using update for these. Take two. These tests are so nice to have. So important to have. All right, we did miss one here. Cards. Should let people edit cards they wrote on their own board. This one, still failing. No entity to update. App. Dev, Firestore. Organizations, Alice, org. Okay, so maybe we got our paths here. Organizations. Alice, org, Alice, org. Boards. Doc, Alice, board. Collection, cards. Doc, Alice, card. Is that the same here? Collection, cards. Doc, Alice, card. Do we not have an Alice card, potentially? We do not. We just have her adding it, but so we just need to make an Alice card. And how do we do this? Org, boards, board. Cards, doc, Alice card, set. Doc, Alice card, set. Content, created by Bob, Alice. All right. Give her a spin. See what we get. Passing. We passed the test. Start up on stage and see how it looks. Actually, wait, we don't need to do that. We've got it running right here. This is Sam Coward. And this is Moose Coward. JFK writing startup programs. We have nothing to fear. But insufficient permissions. Motherfucker. Oh, I didn't push it to dev, that's why. It's not actually using, the emulator was using it with a test, but I don't know if it's actually using these new rules unless we push it to the dev server. Oh, it is. Oh, shit. But I have it. Oh, so I'm gonna go find that again. Not completed. So what if I get rid of this node path thing? Where do I even set node path? Well, you know what? Whatever. When it's deprecated, we'll fix it. Later. It's coming all the way down. Because you know what? By the time it breaks, other people have had problems, and then we'll just use their solutions that they wrote about on the internet. Work in progress. Work in progress. Okay, it's up. Hard refresh. Hard refresh, hard refresh. So we don't really need these things anymore. We're just testing to see if we can quit this and not get an error. Can I upvote here? Yes. Golden. We fixed it. So cool. All right, let's get it out there. Allow non-card authors to edit card if they're in the org. Definitely the rules, definitely the tests. Package, no. All right, let's try to put it live for our tests. This should also push to stage. So it's gonna take longer to go live now, but whatever. And also, you know, it's going to help, I think, to have the latest version on stage. As long as if we go live, there shouldn't be an old version on stage. That's the point of this. I think it's going to work. So I'm just going to commit it, and then we can always commit, amend. That's a terrible idea, but let's just get the commit message ready. Okay, push to stage on live deploys. All right, if it works, we're ready to commit it. These have served their purpose. What are some other things we're going to want to do for this? I had thought about, let's see, one thing in miscellaneous. I want to get like a summary email using, so Google Data Studio is like a thing where you can just like put a bunch of data from a bunch of different places into like a document, and then you can get that document sent to you all the time. So it's like a good way to get the update of what's happening. But you know what? We don't need to really need this. Let's just say for sometime way later, maybe we'll have maybe. That's a solid miscellaneous maybe. I mean, it would be nice. Maybe we'll do it eventually, but probably not. Nah, we probably will eventually. Whatever, it's way down on the list. Another thing I'm thinking about is like getting payment and having people like, when we open the private beta, we want people to log in and be able to like kind of try it out and use it, but not get all the value out of the app until they sign up for a paid account, because this is a lot of work we're doing on this and we deserve to get paid for it. So, but we also don't want to like keep it completely hidden away. We want to give them as much visibility into what this thing does for them while also like making sure that they upgrade if they want to get the full value. So I had this thought, I don't know how to say it. It's like we need to do something like before launch. It's more than just like knowing if they're signed in or not. We need to like design, upgrade, design paywall, and upgrade. We'll just say design paywalls and design upgrade flow. I don't know what category those are in, but they're in there. They're in the backlog. Okay, this is live. Let's see. Well, now I can just go to stage and see that it's up, and it should be exactly the same as the live version now. So I don't have to go to the live version. Nice and mobile responses. Responsive login. Just want to make sure this works before I do my usability test, because it would suck if it broke during the test. Maybe we need better loading states. Do I have that anywhere? No, we need that. One thing about loading states is it's like make it seem like it's loading faster. If you just put a loading thing, then people know it's loading, but it doesn't. It actually, you can improve the how perceptually how it feels for it to load if you like show more or show the content that's about to appear in sort of an obscured way. So I think that's a good thing to do. We should do it eventually. Oh, jeez. Well, I think there's somewhere we have to say copying the meeting link, click button to copy meeting link. Also fix the link overflowing the well. What is that used to be like a whole Flash plugin you have to use. I don't think you have to do that anymore. So we don't want that. We want clipboard write text. What's support like? Ooh, not great. Yeah. Not even Edge, okay. Yeah, that's not good. Okay, so let's just make a note of our just little investigation here. Click button to copy meeting. I think there was just something called write too, right? Woof. Way worse. I didn't even think about that one. Okay, let's do the exact command thing. Oh, without permissions? So those other things might need permissions? We don't want that. This is what we want. when you click the thing that says copy, copy text is find the thing called input. Select it, then exec the command copy. That's exactly what we want. A little research there. Better way. Browser support for this exec command thing. Oh, very good. Wonderful. We'll do that later. Okay. Our stuff is live. I think we're ready to do this test. It's been 40 minutes. We gotta get going. That's good though. Oh, we did this. Great. Sync that up. We've got a clean repo. We're good to go. Great. Okay, guys, that was good. We fixed a little bug. I hope we didn't break anything else. We're gonna have 2 usability tests today, and I'm really excited to have them because it's Becky and Christina. And Becky is especially one of our original personas, and Christina is like the perfect person to test because of her background. So you'll see all about that later. Stay tuned. Okay, this is our first usability test of the day. I'm actually doing 2 today. I'm just very excited. It just happened to work out that way. Very excited to do this test because this is Christina York, who is a very, your background, what you're currently doing now is actually very good overlap for this because you are, and I just want to give a little background to people who may be watching this might know, you're a user experience designer and have been for many years, but now you're a CEO running a startup. And so you're doing both design work and like trying to lead teams and stuff.
Beautiful, beautiful butterfly.
You're a unique flower in this botanical flora and fauna analogy. But I think it's actually really relevant to this. I didn't tell you anything about what we're working on.
No, you've been very secretive.
Very secretive. Okay. Well, that was good because we hadn't released any of these videos before. Now they're out there a little bit. So you could have gone and snuck, but you haven't.
No.
That's useful.
I regret not sneaking now, though. So I will say.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really do appreciate it.
Of course.
Especially on camera, and we won't talk about the camera anymore.
Okay, don't talk about it anymore because I'm trying really hard to ignore the camera right now.
All right, this is going to be like a bit of a product discovery conversation at the beginning, and then we'll do like a usability test situation, product test after at the end.
Sounds good.
So I want to start by asking you a little bit about design, and we'll go to CEO stuff later. And specifically, I want to know about like what your process is for the early stages of design when you've gone and maybe done some discovery on site, some interviews, you're figuring things out. You have a lot of different ideas or snippets of things, and you're trying to sort of synthesize this together into like some notion of a brief or some like, basically I'm trying to figure out this area of generating ideas early on from ideas before we like get into like the nitty gritty of UI design.
Yeah.
Are there any frameworks or processes or things that you kind of lead on as a go-to in that realm?
So I think it's been different than from what I've done in my career in the past, although I definitely use some of the tools. It is challenging when we're making stuff up. So okay, it's really challenging. We always start from the problem, and which is the right place to start no matter what, right? But then what we have to do a lot of times is we can't work off of, say, what other experiences have been in space and like
Right.
begin to like create mental models around that or anything like that. We spend a lot of time digging at the problem, and then we create hypotheses about how to like, because I think people really can't wrap their head around augmented reality at first as a technology. They very frequently come back and be like, yeah, we have this problem with patient engagement around this thing, and maybe you could like make an app that, you know, and like, and it's very much a mobile app vision, and I'm like, let's not talk about the solution. Let's talk, you know. So in the early days, we do a lot of concept creation. So we'll spend a bunch of time gathering information about the problem and do concept creation. It might be showing them animated GIFs of things we make, like anything. Sometimes it's hand-drawn sketches of things, and do a lot of concept testing just to kind of start ferreting out, is it actually going to go towards solving the problem? And then we might narrow it down to a couple of choices that seem to be in the right direction, or one thing that seems to be in the right direction. We'll do storyboarding as a design tool, both internally and as a way of communicating things to the people we're working with. And sometimes those people are collaborators in building the products, and some, like hospitals that are going to give us input. And sometimes they're just potential customers that we're like trying to make sure we're not designing down a hole. And then we start building iteratively. We've done, when we're ferreting out the problem, a lot of times we make things like journey maps. That's a really popular thing. Hospitals love journey maps. So much so that in fact we, for some of our webinars, will like offer to make them free for hospitals, because we get to learn, but we also get to give them a tool that actually starts to encapsulate for them what the patient experience for that. Like we think user experience, patient experience, user experience with the technology, patient experience is all the things around everything, right? And hospitals love it. And we discovered this early on. I was making some journey maps for like understanding a patient, like from the time they were told they need to get an MRI to the time, like till after they have the MRI and what they go out in the world and say. And I was trying to just map all the encounters with people or technology or spaces, or like, you know, your doctor tells you this, you get a note from the hospital, you schedule an appointment somewhere where you've never been, and your mom's looking at YouTube videos, you know, like we were just trying to understand like all the ways that they engage with technology and human beings around that. And so creating that journey map through the different channels of the experience was very interesting for us, and it helped us pinpoint where there were no good solutions, and then confirm that with the customer. And then when we showed them the journey map, they're like, what the heck is that? I want one of those.
That's awesome.
And we're like, well, you can have this one. And then we realized like it was a tool for us in terms of really narrowing down the problem, like while defining the problem for us. It was like, oh, it's also solving problems for them. So we'll do other tools like that in our design process. I felt like I talked around a lot.
That's perfect, actually.
Okay.
Journey map sounds really relevant. What other tools, you said, are there any other tools before we move on and dig into that are sort of like journey maps that you use?
So we, so the journey maps I might be using it overly broadly, so we might, sometimes it looks very much like a table, like an Excel spreadsheet turned into something fancy, but where it marks the channels that they go through and the different encounters they have, and sometimes we make that more visual, as more like a flow chart, and certainly we write out user stories around things, and that's really about testing back with those subject matter experts. Like, this is a story of a kid who has cancer and is like back and forth between home and hospital a lot, and we want to talk about we want to understand from their point of view, what it's like, and then we write the story and then we give it back to them. We're like, does this sound right? Like, it's just ways of constantly testing our knowledge and assumptions in the early stages, and those are the most common things around problem definition and opportunity identification at the beginning. We do user testing, I shouldn't say user testing, experience testing, you know, getting people to like work with early prototypes and doing observations. We also send out surveys and questionnaires and other things. We do different types of concept testing later on, sometimes A/B testing for different channels. Those are just like tools we use, but in terms of artifacts, most of our artifacts are up front. We'll wait till we get the story right, we'll get to the journey map right, and then those are the things and we have personas that help us, but those are probably the personas, the journey maps, these are flow diagrams, and the storyboards are probably the biggest artifacts.
Well, those are some of my favorites.
Oh, good.
So that's exciting.
Good.
I want to zoom in on, I think that early, the area where you would be doing personas and journey maps, maybe storyboards, before you get to like flow diagrams and prototypes. That's like the area that I'm most interested in for this, like that early stage where you're just sort of trying to define ideas and high level flows before we're like designing any user interface at all, even prototypes. What are the tools that you use for journey maps? And those things in general? It sounded like Excel for sure, or something like Excel.
Google Docs, like we use Google Sheets and sometimes the presentations, or what's it called? Not PowerPoint, the Google version of PowerPoint, whatever it's called. Google Slides. Yeah. It's like Google Slides, Google Sheets, Google Docs. Like we literally make stuff in that.
That's great. Yeah.
I came from a job that we paid for a lot of tools, and like I loved having those tools. And then when we came to a spot where I had to pay for the tools, and I was like, oh gosh, this is like a crazy expense that I'm like, I don't know that I want to at this point like roll it into the cost of like creating things.
Because you're running a startup right now.
Yeah.
What were those tools that you may have considered bringing on and were too expensive, and how expensive were they?
I don't remember that. Geez, Sam.
I'm trying to figure out what's expensive.
Yeah. There were the things I'm thinking of are not the early prototyping tools, the early discovery tools. Like we had some. I'm gonna screw this up. Indy Young did a bunch of stuff around mind mapping, but it was like mind mapping, but she did mental models, and so there were tools that sprung up around. I remember when Indy's book came out, like around mental models, like
who is this?
Indy Young.
Indy Young.
INDI. Indy Young. She's amazing, and I've seen her talk several times. She's and she did this thing with sticky notes on a wall and really like ferreting out the mental models that people have around tasks or features or whatever. Like, where do you start in the problem, in the discovery process? And then, of course, there were tools that popped up around that, software tools. And, and when I think about, like, all the tools back in the day when I had, like, a fully funded department from the beginning to the end, like, we were paying, like, thousands of dollars a month total to do that. And so this is a lot of sweat equity in startups where we're like, nope, we're gonna make it ourselves, and it's gonna be kind of crappy, but we're gonna use Google Forms for our questionnaires and different ways to collect data. And a lot of times it's just about what's really, really, really fast for us, because we can't spend a lot of time on creating and managing artifacts, and then we found out later that it was really important to share them, and so. Could we get it into like a branded format for us that looks okay?
Ooh, okay, that's really interesting. Could you tell me about that? Like, what is an example of a fast and a slow product, and what is it like to have a branded sharing experience for some artifact you have?
Yeah. So first we would make the stuff just internally, and it would be haphazard. And then when we realized, like, that first hospital asked me for that journey map, and I was like, I quickly ran back and said, somebody's gotta fix this, we gotta check this, and we gotta, you start running it through all these filters. Not just spell check, but did we say anything damning? Did we say anything judgmental? Did we say, really weird things? Like, I would have just been typing in to capture things. So it became a thing of less of because sometimes journey maps for us are almost like note-taking.
Yeah.
It's like a template for me as the way I think when I'm talking to somebody and gathering data. And so then we fixed it up and sent it to them. And then we kind of tested this concept around like, are people really, I didn't realize like they didn't have as good a grasp on that whole flow, like that whole the journey for the patient as we assumed they did, and that it was really valuable to them. And this actually could become a sales and marketing tool for us. Like if it, as part of discovery, what we learn, can we share with others to their benefit and to further our knowledge? Like that's super valuable to everybody involved. And so then we sat down and like we made a template. Like we started to put better, I'm not gonna want to say rules. We made a template that looked nicer, that was reusable, and then we started to maybe more standardize, I don't know, the way we went at, like we made it more efficient in terms of like what are the interview questions we would ask as a framework. Like we actually created an interview framework where before we would just spend like an hour or whatever time we could get from a clinician. That's how long we would talk to them for. But if we could almost productize it in a way, like we make it more efficient, we say we only need 20 minutes of your time to get this certain type of information, and then we organize it in a way that's useful for you to consume it later and useful for us as well. And so we just made this template, made a standard like baseline questions you'd ask. Of course you can take a conversation anywhere you want to go, but make sure you hit these 7 points. And when we ran it through a webinar one time. At the end of one of our webinars, we offered anybody who is interested in getting a journey map made for any problem you're facing in the hospital, come just sign up here on this Calendly thing, sign up for a 30-minute time slot, which is something people could do on their lunch, right? And then people took us up on it. And then they were telling us their problems, and we were like so excited to learn and like engage with them at that level. And then they were so excited to have somebody help them articulate it in a meaningful and structured way. And so, but we had to make it efficient. Like we had to, there's only a handful of us, like how do we do all these interviews and crank out the thing? So it was like a form where we were just entering the notes while they were talking, and then it could be spit out into the form, the template that we had set.
So it was a Google form that you would run yourself on a call, and then you would take the results of that form, usually it exports into like a spreadsheet or something, and that spreadsheet could go into a template in what tool?
Google Sheets.
Google Sheets. That's good. I don't use anything but Google Docs and Google Sheets. I'm a big fan. I just moved all my blog posts from Medium to Google Sheets. I'm like, I'm gonna have 2 things I use.
Yeah.
That's all I want.
I know. It just simplified for us. Those are tools we use every day in making all our stuff. It's easy to spit out different formats that are shareable. It's easy to like put it in a drive folder and let them access it, and or just send it to them in email. To create these centralized places where if they want to share with other team members, like go take a look. If you want to edit it, like just stuff like that. Like it just created a whole new way for us to engage deeply with people. And then we had a relationship. We sent it back, and then we would get stories about like, oh my God, I shared it with my boss, and like she called a whole team meeting around it, and we talked about this, and then I actually have some corrections. Could you mind? And I was like, we keep it coming. And it just became this whole other like value chain to a product we were trying to sell them, and then we produced this other value, and I'm like, that's like really the right type of engagement, like where both parties are benefiting from that whole discovery process, and they were getting a better grip on their own problems because of the artifacts we were creating to try to help them solve their problems.
So when you were running these, you were running the template with a single person on like a phone call or video call, and then sometimes they would take it back to a bigger group.
We give them the artifact, and they would use it.
They would sort of run their own meeting without you.
Sometimes they would forward it on by email. FYI, we think sometimes they would include it in a budget request, like I need more money to spend on this thing because of this. We heard it like they were trying to justify even hiring more people on the team. They were trying to justify not only spending for our tools, but for other things as well, or just to start a committee to address the problem because it was bigger than they thought. And they're like, can we get a task force or a committee going on this? So it was interesting the different types of requests that would come out of it, or the different ways they would use it. Some used it to like prove to their boss that they were doing a really good job. Right? Like, totally. Why not? You were curious, and you were trying to do something
Did this work?
And it just, I think, we make a lot of assumptions about hospitals, and I think this probably holds for many industries, that because they're big and maybe efficient or well-run or perceived as efficient and well-run, or that they have a lot of data, that they use it on a daily basis. And that's like the worst assumption you can make about any consumer of data. Like, yeah, hospitals have tons and tons and tons of data. And if there was enough power in this world, they could make the most brilliant insights ever and be perfect all the time. But that's not how the world works. Like, we're infants in the consumption of data in this world. And so when some of the most powerful things you can do is to help even just a simple visualization that gives meaning. And I find like a lot of UX tools do that, because that's the whole point for the UX practitioner, is to give you insight into solving the problem, right? Like, organize the inputs, organize the data you have into a format that's consumable and usable, that you can then further the work. So it just turned into this other, as a UX person, I was like, I already knew how to do that, but I never had to also do marketing or selling or any of the other pieces. And I'm like, this is totally useful in all these areas. Why aren't you people using it in all these areas? Like, I think the value proposition of the UX artifact hasn't been taken far enough in, like, for in-house teams even.
I have a ton of questions about this.
Go.
One of them is, you said there's something about brand. Like, when you share this, do you make it a Spellbound branded thing? Do you make it branded for them? How much of this is an artifact that's tied to a brand, and how is that, like, how does it literally look in the template?
Yeah. So when we first were doing, because when first doing it, it was definitely primarily Spellbound branded. And then we made a switch where our logo existed, but it was suddenly in the bottom right corner now, much smaller than it was. It was like the last thing you would look at on the page. And now we have to be careful too. We don't put their logos in there unless they tell us to put their logos in there. But we certainly left room if, when we gave them the, say, Excel file, or they wanted to like insert it themselves.
Yeah.
But we never delivered that. But we would like put their hospital name in big letters across the top, and the team name, like, this was, journey map for patients, MRI patients at hospital name, for, and then subtitle, like the team, not the individual, but like the individual's unit or department. So that, and those things matter in hospitals, like it's very hierarchical, very structured, and so that mattered to the team member, but it also, like when they were spreading it on, passing it on to, maybe they just sent it to their supervisor, and their supervisor sent it to the director of their unit, and the director, and somehow it gets up to somebody, and like all along that chain, it matters what, how that form, like how that artifact is branded. They'd be more likely to engage with it beyond the header if it was not our brand.
So your brand matters. Who did it and what department they are in, and what the journey map, or the title or some description of the thing that as well. Makes a lot of sense. What is it like when one of those higher ups gets this? Like, what experience do you think you want them to have when they receive one of these reports that might be coming not through the person you collaborated with to create the report? Does that make sense? Like,
I mean, I think we always hope for an aha moment with people, like, it could be good, it could be bad. Sometimes it's about inspiring them to, hopefully be inspired about our product, but inspiring them just to even start to move toward a solution, even if they're not going with us right away, like to acknowledge. I think there's a lot of it's very difficult to acknowledge real issues, because then that means they have to start working to solve them. And if, like, frankly, when you're dealing with places that it's life or death in some areas it's maybe not, then you can understand why the priority system is the way it is. And so sometimes you need these aha moments when it's like, we're not actually going to save a life. What we're going to do is like reduce trauma in the patient experience, increase cooperation, increase your throughput, reduce wait times for families, like lots and lots of value, but did we reduce the number of deaths due to cancer? No.
Yeah.
So I can see why this is the area where you would focus most readily on, but this area matters too, and sometimes they need that aha moment to be like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And it's not so hard to solve it, and because sometimes these things can feel nebulous to them, and it's hard to get a grip. So when you want that moment where they're like, it crystallizes the problem succinctly.
Yeah.
And like, I did work in a hospital for a while as a UX person, and what I learned very quickly is about economy of words. Like when things are measured in seconds and milliseconds and like breaths, like these very discrete and tiny moments of time, you don't send lengthy emails. You don't hold meetings can literally be called for 8-minute time slots.
Wow.
Like it is economy of words. So when you're trying to communicate something, obviously it didn't work well for me, no, but like, you're trying to communicate something, you have to figure out the most succinct way to get it across. Yeah. It's almost like producing constant aha moments, like a breakthrough, an insight, something that quickly translates into action. And if that's the way they operate as clinicians and administrators of clinicians, then that's the way artifacts need to speak to them. And I feel like UX artifacts are they're built for that.
Yeah. Very cool. In your past life, when you were doing other work, when you weren't doing this project, and you were doing similar kinds of work, first of all, did you have any other formats or tools that you did use? Like you mentioned, you were running a team where you had these other tools that you would use to run user experience artifacts. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm specifically in this like early discovery, very early definition phase. Mm-hmm. First question around that is like, did you use any other tools that you really liked or formats that you really liked? You mentioned something like Post-its that might have been something like Affinity diagram.
Yeah, Affinity diagram is one of my favorite things to do of all time. We do it internally here all the time.
Oh, really?
Like business process, everything. I'm surprised there's one not on the wall there right now. Affinity diagramming, we built things like these magnetic sheets that you print out. You can print out stuff, and I would build out like raw pieces of interfaces and like cut them up and let people on whiteboards create like
that's cool
interfaces, and then what I would do is I would say, I would have someone come in with a blank thing and be like, here's the problem, and give them the problem. They're like, go ahead and solve it. And I'd leave the room, and then they would design their interface, and I'd take a picture of it, and then I would do that with a bunch of people on a team from like different angles, right? Like, how would the salesperson solve it? And then we use we would go through and look at all the similarities and differences, and sometimes we would do it with customers, or sometimes we would do it with end users. Like, when you do it with different groups, it yields different insights. So I'm very much like into almost like arts and craftsy kind of like, because sometimes it's hard to get typical interviewing or ethnographic studies are almost impossible to use in the hospital environment. You're not allowed to just go in and observe and make insights about behavior. Yeah. It's like protected, right? Yeah. There's privacy issues, all kinds of stuff. And then we always like know the difficulty of interviewing the subject matter expert. Well, to me, like the chief of pediatric cardiology is like the epitome of like the worst possible interview subject, because they know so much. The knowledge is so deep, and in some cases also so broad that you across like a subject that and then it's just like, and they never have. You would need to spend so much time with them that they can't possibly get. So you have to decide, like, I used to do, when I used to create tools for college students, like I would sit in coffee shops and get out and just like watch, observe, and then find people to like talk to me. I'll buy you a coffee if you tell me a little bit more about why you're doing that. Like I would start like with behavior and understanding motivations, and therefore translate that into expectations. And I can't do that anymore. When we do get to go and observe, it's a very controlled situation. We don't get freedom to do what we want. We have been allowed to go in, and I remember the first time we ever went into a hospital, we were trying to just even decide, is it delivered via a headset? Is it delivered via a mobile device? Can we do some A/B testing with something we built? with users just to determine the direction for building the product, and it determined that we were going to start with mobile because of the experiences we had, but like that was extremely controlled, and it wasn't like I couldn't follow you know, the way I used to, like, oh, that's interesting, let me ask you more about this. Like, it was really defined what we were allowed to talk to the patients about.
That's tough.
So I couldn't go off script.
Yeah.
As you well know, script is like terrible. But
This is my script.
Right, it's a guideline. You want to bring in a guideline.
Yeah.
These are the main points I want to hit, or like,
Yeah.
and then go with it.
Yeah.
And it was, so it can be very difficult to apply it. So I find myself applying some of these techniques to like our business development process. Like,
Which techniques you mean?
Like some of my ethnographic or interview questions, and like really, I'll go to trade shows just to like listen to other sales pitches and hear how those clinicians or administrators respond to those sales pitches. What are the questions they ask? And, like, I'm doing like an ethnographic study, like in the field, just because I'm like trying to build out our own sales pipeline and process, and you know, anticipate the issues that we're going to have.
You mentioned doing affinity diagrams with your team also. So that's like another instance of a UX tool that you're using in a non-pure product development context, right?
Yeah.
What are some examples of things you guys use that for? And is it like a pure affinity diagram? What are those sessions like?
I did one that wasn't a huge success recently. This is the most recent one. So we have to redo some of the infrastructure of our platform. We want to redo our interface and a few other things. So I was like, okay, I want everybody to jot down all the features that we have on the platform now. And then I want you to jot down all the ones that are in the process of being built on this color. And on this color. And then on this color, I want you to jot down all the ones that we talked about and planned, but haven't started work on yet. And then we put those up, and we did a couple different sorts to say, like, as an activity to say, how would things be organized either on the back end, structurally, or on the front end to the user, like through that mobile app interface, like how would they anticipate? Right. And we put different lenses on it. Like, I would say, okay, now let's sort with the mind to efficiency, non-responsiveness, performance. Like, it has, you know, like, let's put this filter on it, or let's put a filter on it in terms of accessibility, or let's put a filter on it. And so we went through the activity a couple of times and did some sorts, and we started to see some patterns where certain things were always kind of lumped together. And then so certainly when we do our planning for our backlog, I guess this is another tool, but it leads to affinity diagram, or it often starts from affinity diagram. Quadrant analysis of like, for like features for us, like easy to build, hard to build, easy to use on the other end, or hard to use, performant or not performant. You know, like we would just do different ones, and we might take all the features that we had done the affinity diagram with. Okay, these seem to lump together and seem to be the core things, and let's now map them out in our quadrant analysis, and actually, like, we'll assign points to the quadrants and then assign points to the cards, and then add it up over time and be like, these are the critical things that we have to have together, and that, like, this is the ones that are done, these are the ones in progress, and these are the ones that haven't yet started, but look at, they're popping up over here. And so sometimes it's a priority activity, sometimes it's a thinking, like a problem solving, like, I really don't know how to redo the infrastructure piece. I don't know, one of these asset bundles should be set up this way or this way. Like, it could be an engineering problem, it could be like a design problem, it could be multiple layers of problem that we're trying to solve with that activity. We've done it with goals, certainly, setting goals for the team, or deciding what to do next, and that could be either engineering or sales or marketing, like a campaign that we might want to do next, and we have a bunch of ideas for doing stuff, and how do we kind of, when ideas come from different areas and different people, how do we kind of see the commonalities between them, or the differences, and then have meaningful conversations about those things in a way that's gonna, like, help us make decisions about the business.
That's very related to what I'm thinking about. what is the biggest problem you have when running meetings like that, or some of the biggest problems?
Mm-hmm. We are a small team. I know there's all kinds of dangers with big teams or groupthink, and there's other pitfalls. But we're not a company that has departments that have multiple members of each department. Therefore, there's multiple viewpoints representing each department. That can sometimes be, whatever, not averaged out, but you know what I mean, like mitigated or cancel each other out or reinforce each other. We can't see bigger patterns of that. We have a bunch of individuals that operate in different capacities that come, and then those individual biases or individual communication styles or individual, so it doesn't become an identity of a group like marketing.
Right, it's the identity of
the individual.
Bob or Sue or
yes,
something. Yeah.
Exactly. And so that's one problem that's why I think doing activities like affinity diagramming in a way, like forcing people to see things through different lenses or to like see things in a unique way, doing different activities of grouping is useful. And then certainly the quadrant analysis, like for us, giving criteria, because sometimes the engineering criteria is not going to be the same as the marketing criteria, like that's obvious, but then sometimes the personalities themselves put a skew on it that, might, further complicate things. So we, I think running these activities where we can see from different viewpoints very often, or where we can focus very much on a single viewpoint, which it might be either through personas like this child life specialist role that we are selling into, or this end user who has this condition. So there's times where we want to force people to stand at an angle that they're not used to and see from okay, go see from Rachel's perspective, go see from my perspective. And then there's times where we want to force all of us to stand together and look through one lens of the stakeholder or the administrator or a persona. The other problem is that I feel like as an extroverted UX person that has done a lot of things, there were 2 game books that I used to use all the time. Game Storming was one, and there was another one. I don't even have the bookshelf over there. It might have them on the bookshelf. But play games with people to get illicit problem activities. I used to do all these things. And so I turn it on my staff. I'm also a very dominant personality, and so I run the risk all the time. Like you said, what are the dangers in these meetings? Even when I'm running affinity diagramming, I'm I can see the way it could be done 15 different times, and I want to just hurry up, show you.
What if we did that? Yeah.
And I'm I need to stop. And it's hard when it's a small team because I represent a whole area that nobody else represents. So the rule is the UX person should not participate. So I am that UX person, but then I am a role that's supposed to participate. And I realize because I started the company in the role I have, and because of who I am just as a person, this creates a whole world of problems.
Yeah.
And that's the only downfall, frankly, I've seen as being both the UX person and the CEO. Because so many other, I'm 99.99% of the time, I'm thank God I was a UX person and I have this toolkit. But there's that one time where I'm damn it, why couldn't somebody else in this room right now be the UX person? I need someone to manage me in this.
That's so fascinating.
Yeah.
What would if you could snap your fingers and would it just be another person another you that could just come in and run it? What would be if in your dream world, what would be your ideal situation for that specific problem in this meeting?
If my universe is rupturing, Sam.
There's unicorns and rainbows.
Yeah.
And stuff flying by.
It's the end of the world as I know it. No, I am really torn between that's what I get to do all day and somebody else comes and runs the company. Right?
Right.
And I run the company and I have somebody else who can like manage, like
Right.
I'm a stakeholder in that whole process of
Yeah.
like creation around user experience. Like both are very desirable roles to me. I think what I often worry about is like I'm falling into a comfort role because I came from a career in user experience, and that's just the comfy safe box that it's easy to go back into. But it's also just fun. Like that's the reason I had a career in it. It was fun and like you're always learning and creating new insights and creating new knowledge and sharing that knowledge. And I just love that. So I think, but where I am now, I think, having someone to come in and do it, like I think it would probably benefit me hugely to be the subject once in a while. And I'd probably learn a lot from somebody else doing that for me.
What if you could snap your fingers and have any tool to help you with this instead of a person? You're still the person you are, but you could have anything that could help you untangle this problem of you want to jump in, you want to sort and figure this stuff out. Is there any structure that you think might be really helpful to you to have? Just curious, you can say no ideas.
This may be wrong, off topic, or weird. What I'm struggling with now is in terms of user experience. Augmented reality, right now we deliver it through a mobile app. So there is an interface, technically. Right. But the canvas on which it's placed is infinite. It's the world.
Right.
At least infinite in a human's eyes, right? But and we can actually create infinite canvases. We can create portals that open up and look like it is infinite space. It's infinite digital space. And when you remove that, there are a lot of things like that I want, whether it's observational data collection or like quantitative data collection in that 3D space of user experience, which does not exist now. So when you think about standard analytics of like how a user interacts with, say, an interface, right. Like standard analytics stuff you can use that and combine with your ethnographic observations or whatever you want to do your quantitative combination and make some insights from that. You can get the what are they doing and what are they doing most often and start combining it with the deep look into the why are they doing and the motivation behavior. With augmented reality, there's like even basic analytics were lagging for for years, and now they're out there, but they're still like really subpar. And observationally, with mobile at least, there's the possibility of observing it. But when you start getting into headsets, it just starts complicating because you can watch that on a screen maybe, but even then it's like you're not. So anyway, so I want things like when I'm understanding how a user is engaging with a digital object that's rendered in 3D that may be relative to other digital objects and relative to their behavior, I want to be able to measure some of that it could be angles, it could
it sounds like there's a whole realm of tools that could be useful for sort of understanding the usage and analytics of the tools you're building themselves.
Right. So that
what if you could invent any tool for the moment when you're in that meeting where you were talking about the affinity diagramming and you're the CEO? Like, I'm really interested in the specific moment. You'll see how it's relevant in a minute. When you're having like a session with your team and you're talking about something, trying to make a decision. Are there any tools that you could use? Because that probably won't be able to be too much useful in terms of analytics for VR. But what if you could have a perfect tool for managing the communication of your team? Is there anything that comes to mind? And if not, that's totally fine. Like, what would be the ideal situation besides having a user experience person come in and run a meeting with you as CEO?
Okay, so I'm not going to describe to you a tool because I don't know what that tool is. I'm going to I think there's something around empathy building.
Empathy building.
So when I talked about lenses or filters or stuff like that, like that's often the whole purpose of that is to build empathy in situations to help come together to solve a problem. And so I think there are tools around empathy building. and as an augmented reality person, of course, I immediately go to like, can we use 3D technology to build empathy in a situation where we can better understand the user journey, better understand that the decision maker's process of like purchasing technology in a hospital, like where we could actually situationally put ourselves into it. And healthcare is such a black box, like, but for the team itself, like to situationally put themselves into it.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean? And then have meaningful discussions about how personal experiences shape our insights or, you know, our reactions to those things. So I think there's like something around empathy building is what I'm going to categorize it at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because that is all, like, whether it's affinity diagramming or the quadrant analysis, all those are activities in alignment, right? Like
Yeah.
we're trying to
Sorry.
normalize all the biases, all the like random weirdness that come from human beings of different walks of life with different life experiences coming together on one point, right?
Yeah.
Or a decision or something. So we're trying to normalize and we're trying to align. And I think that is, empathy is a way to eliminate a lot of noise in those. And so if you had tools that built empathy. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. Because I think all the things when we create personas, like that's trying to build empathy,
Yeah,
right?
Totally.
When you were doing a journey map, that's all about empathy. Like all the artifacts we use are about empathy. So at least the ones we've focused on, and I wouldn't say that all artifacts, that's an assumption that all UX artifacts are based on empathy, but the ones that we use are. And so finding the common threads between those things at the beginning in terms of communicating or providing activities for people that and lead you to empathy. And then I think there is like something, and we use a lot of different tools now, but around capturing ideas.
What do you use? That's really interesting.
Want to see all the ways we do it? Okay, so sticky notes, Trello, Google Docs, all the cheapo ways that we do it. We literally capture ideas through little videos on our phones.
That's cool.
And
How do you share that stuff?
it can be shared through Slack, through Google Drive, mostly Slack. And it can be attached to things like a Trello card or like we have Jira as well. But we've tried different tools, some stick, some don't. Slack is a tool that's really stuck, and so we've actually started building little plugins for Slack.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So like when we want to grant access to a new user, we actually just type in the Slack bar, and it
that's awesome.
literally hooks up to our backend, creates permissions, and spits back what we actually did to check to make sure. So it's like we're creating these little Slack, like scripts for Slack to turn it into this. But I feel like that's a bit of like building Frankenstein's monster. Like we are Frankensteining it together. Like, is that really the tool we should be managing permission off and off in? We're like, what? Let's just roll back on that one.
The command line or something for your native.
So I think when we look at the different ways that we come up with ideas, we draw and take a picture and post it on Slack. And like we do or take a little video. Like the engineers are really famous for like running this experimental thing and then just doing it and like showing how it works and like showing a proof of concept and posting a little like 30-second video up. And so like it's like mini artifact create or like ID. What would you, all the ways we can create or not create, capture an idea and then store it, and then to us like it's like those ideas have to be analyzed / prioritized. Like some activity has to take into like which ones do we move on and which ones don't, and then once you decide to move on an idea, then it undergoes this whole evolution, and that's all part of the discovery process because an idea can come from anywhere. It could be sent to us from a customer. It could come internally from the team, and all of them have to be vetted. I don't know, as part of a discovery process. Is this actually solving the problem you think? Like, is this problem, how prevalent is this problem? You say this is a problem, and we hear that's a problem, but like really in the market, are there other tools that solve it? And what's good or bad about those tools? Or if there's no tools that solve it, is the problem worth solving, right?
Yeah.
So we have to go through that, and then once we determine it is, do we really understand the problem and why it's happening? And then we sit down and design for the solution. But the idea capture, and then the activities that go around vetting ideas are also an issue, because it's all over the place. It's a disaster.
So there's a process of capturing things, getting them onto the record somewhere, but the actual process of managing that capture. Trello is like a Kanban productivity tool. There's also Slack, which is very chronological, right, to the extreme. And it sounds like there's maybe a little bit of lack of clarity around how you take a bunch of ideas and turn them into like a plan or a decision or, you know, validated insight thing that then goes into doing something else. Good. Interesting. This has been a great conversation. I have a couple of small questions that I want to do a couple quickly, and then hopefully we still have time to go a little bit over, if that's okay, and dive into something that I've actually made. But this is far more important than the usability test.
Just kidding.
Also because the usability test might break, because I just shipped some new code this morning. We'll see.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that's why it broke on the last one I did. You mentioned games. That's really interesting. Could you give me a couple of examples of the other games that you used or you guys have used that have been useful for this kind of, this is the realm that I'm really interested, by the way, this sort of group coming together, having ideas, clumping them, sorting them. I love what you talked about, filtering things. That was really interesting. And then sharing them. What are the games that you've used, and what are the, like, tell me about these games.
Okay. So there's different types or like purposes behind games, and sometimes you'll see individual techniques like affinity diagramming bleeding into a part of a game. So like there's something about productivity, right? There's games around productivity. Can you just get people to move through move something forward?
Yeah.
Right? Get closer to a decision or make a decision or whatever. And then there's, I'll call it empathy building or alignment games. And so, for example, taking techniques like brainstorming, which is, everyone seems to get when you say that word, but putting different activities like, this is the problem we're trying to solve. Let's brainstorm some ideas that we have, okay? And then stop. Let's brainstorm the worst ideas you can think of to do for this. Then stop. Let's, reverse brainstorm. Take it in different directions. Let's pick this one that we think is the worst idea, and then take it to another activity. There's some the 9 questions game, ask why 9 times or whatever.
Right.
So then you start building on it. And then there's types of games for inspiration. Oh God. And I like I think for the inspiration ones, I guess this is also, the Venn is closing over empathy building, but we've done role-playing stuff where and we do practice. We've played Dungeons and Dragons as a team, just to practice role-playing is a fun thing.
That's awesome.
That's not supposed to be terrifying, but it's supposed to be fun. Taking a persona or writing a specific use case or user story for somebody, and they're coming into a situation. We might all have our different role we're supposed to play, but at one time, only one person would play the role at a time. And really throwing somebody in a situation and say, here's a scenario. It's almost like improv, right? Here's the scenario, and one of us has a role.
That's cool.
We have rules we have to follow, and the other ones don't have to follow rules. And so we kind of switch out, and I think it's really useful in terms of like putting people outside their comfort zones and helping them think, not for the linear thinkers, non-linearly, for the, more like people like me, the chaotic thinkers, like force some frameworks on them or whatever. So we played games like that before.
That's really interesting.
I can't, the game storming book, like, which I've read multiple times, and there's another one which I never know. Yeah, game storming. Like, they outline all these games, and what I did was read the book, and then I took away all these little pieces, and then, so I'm sure some of these games are exactly as I described them in the book, and some of them are like bits and pieces from games that were described in the book, where I've, stitched them back up and put them together in a different way, but I think sometimes, like, really, and we've done creative play, like Lego. Can we define a problem, or can you build a Lego figure that embodies this user? Like, what would you build? And like, it's just an activity and thinking, but also like that kinesthetic, like I'm actually moving. So we've certainly done that.
Very cool. Let me look at my little scribbles and see if there's anything I want to bother you about before we move on to the next step. I mean, one thing that I'm really still curious I would love to be curious about, and to share to whatever degree you feel comfortable, obviously, because this is what we're doing here is a very open project. But I'd love to see any examples that you have of some of these items. Like if there's any examples of affinity diagrams that you feel comfortable sharing, examples of templates or brands. You can get back to me later on this, by the way. If you have any books that you have about this stuff in the office, I'd love to at least just take a picture and see what you've got.
Sure.
I'm very curious to hear how things like your templates, your games, and stuff would actually work. I really love what you said about alignment. So these notes are usually just for me to figure out what to ask you next. They're not really my notes because I have these videos. So I'm going to show, I'll just do this. This is what I took. These are the notes I took. These horrible scribbles during this meeting. In full transparency. This one's really messy. I think I got the most interesting and important questions answered. We're at an hour. I'm going to, unless you have something that came up, okay.
I've got pictures of stuff, so I was just checking to make sure I hadn't deleted them.
Okay, great.
Remember artifact management?
Yeah, that's what we're talking
about.
This whole thing is so meta. It's hard to imagine. We're doing an artifact right now. Okay, let's pause. I want to stop the video to make sure that it doesn't like fill up my phone and that we screw up. Yeah, it happens all the time. And then we'll do a quick usability test and we'll get you out of here shortly. Okay, so before we took a quick break, we were talking about books, and actually, so we have the camera on a stack of these books. I'll just show you what the stack is real quick. These books are what Christina brought to show me. Many Donald Norman books, who I was just talking about with somebody the other day.
And then this book was my
Game Storm. That sounds very relevant. I've never heard of that. I'm very excited to check it out. And so we're going to do a rough usability test of our early product, of what this thing is. Now, you being a UX person, you've done these before, so I don't need to run through all the rules for you.
Don't judge me.
I'm not judging you.
The technology.
It's not a user test. It's a usability test. My philosophy is release early and often, so this is going to be crappy.
Okay,
and
good.
if you don't say so, I'm going to know you're lying. So I want to hear the full. I don't have to tell you to give me.
What if my bar is really, really?
Well, if it's really low, that'd be great. It'd be great. Or anything above the bar is good.
Okay.
Obviously, I've been working on this, but I've done this before. I'm not super sensitive about hearing like what about my designs needs improvement. So as long as it's not like a personal attack on my clothing or my face, how I look, then it's fine. I want to hear it all. Okay. And I know you're gonna do you're gonna talk out loud, and you're just think out loud and just sort of give me a stream of consciousness about what you're doing as you go through, so we can get as much bandwidth and feedback as what's going on as possible.
Yes.
I'm not gonna do a traditional task. We're just gonna have you sign up, take a look, see what you would do, and then maybe I'll give you some tasks after that. Anything else? Anything else? Do my little checklist? I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. So let's say that somebody told you about a tool that could be really helpful for meetings and brainstorming for design or your company in general.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of playing both designer and CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you go to the website and there's no internet. Can I get on your Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. We're still recording. Yeah, go for it.
I can say it out loud for YouTube if you would like.
No, not necessary. That's how you know it's real. All right, you've heard about this thing, and you get here.
Okay.
Do what you would do.
All right.
What's the first thing you notice?
Run amazing live meetings, and Sally Jesse Raphael right next to it. So it puts brainstorms on autopilot. I'm reading and reading.
So what do you think about it so far?
I'm like, what's the difference from WebEx or like that?
Yeah.
Like immediately other tools start popping in my head. Like Run Amazing Live Meetings. I really went to like video meetings. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but
That's really interesting. That makes total sense.
okay. So now I'm like scrolling around, introducing shuffleboard. I see a familiar face. What's on your mind? I like shuffleboard. So this is a video that I have not clicked on because I'm hesitant to click on videos right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
Scanning, take the pressure off your collaborative workshops, run engaging collaborative meetings. And because of the question you asked,
Which was?
I forget, the one I just said about, when I said about the WebEx thing,
Yeah.
your question was not leading, but it made me question my assumption about remote meetings. Because now I'm like reading this going, you mean in person or remotely? Like,
Oh,
are you
yeah.
meaning video meeting or like me in the room with my team?
Well, maybe live to you meant you can run live meetings without technology, but technology lets you run live meetings.
Yeah.
So this is naturally a remote meeting.
Yeah, exactly. That was I think if we walk through that assumption
Yeah.
that I made,
Very
make
cool.
sure everyone heard, never lose a good idea. Yeah. Okay, so one thing that as I'm skimming through what's resonating with me, and I mentioned this in my problem earlier, make sure everyone is heard, because not everybody thinks while they're talking. Some people need to go away and think about things and come back, and then often those voices are lost in the moment. Best part of paper and markers without the hassle. Okay, so now I would 100% transparency. Okay, so I'm not gonna read that. Do that first. Seems pretty exclusive.
Oh, yeah?
It's in private beta, and I can join a wait list. That means it's like hyping it up.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch this.
Hey everyone, I'm Sam. I made Shuffleboard, and I just want
boy.
to show you what it's like to run a meeting in Shuffleboard today. So the first thing we're going to do if we're going to run a new meeting as a facilitator is go to getshuffleboard.com. And then I'm just going to click Start Meeting from one of our pre-existing templates, or maybe a template that you've already set up. We can name our meeting like this week's Sprint Retro. And then we're going to see this screen that we can share with the rest of our meeting. So you maybe, if you're connected to a projector, you can put this on the wall. You can cast it to a TV in your meeting room. The point is that everybody's going to see what's happening in your meeting as you run it. Then you want to take this link here. This is the share link, and share with the rest of the people who are in this meeting, either in Slack or email or however you want to do it. And this screen on the right will show what they see. So basically, they're just going to get a quick welcome screen. When we start the meeting, basically each template provides a series of prompts. These are just sort of open-ended questions that everybody in the meeting is going to answer. So over here, they might say something like, I like shuffleboard, or they might say, we want better coffee, or I think we should try more user research. After you've given everybody a few minutes for each prompt, then you can go back and direct everybody's attention to the main screen in the room. As a facilitator, you can tap to reveal each card and show what its contents are one at a time. So maybe we would talk about liking shuffleboard, doing more user research, and wanting better coffee. Now, the people who are participating in the meeting can also see everybody's answers as they're revealed in their own device, and they can update the ones they think are most important. So if you're building your own meeting, you can do a series of prompts with any question. You could ask, what went really well about our sprint this week, or what do we want to improve for next time? If you're doing brand strategy, it could be, what attributes of a brand do you think are most important for us? But any meeting where you basically have to get a bunch of people in a room and you want to generate or get ideas out of their heads and share them and talk about them and walk away with something sort of like a consensus.
So it's like, I'm trying to synthesize it. Like I'm trying to apply as I'm listening to the video. It's not building an agenda, although technically it could be used to build an agenda. It's like if sometimes we'll ask people when we're brainstorming, right? You will write one idea down per sticky note and put it up, and then we go through and we talk about them and we sort them. And so you're creating a virtual sticky note board for things like that. And then do you want all the questions that are in my head around that?
Pause for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can fix my stupid video.
So I paused the video partway through to try to just get out. I was listening and synthesizing and get out. So I'm right now at this point I'm thinking it's like a virtual sticky note board in the meeting. And so the things that I'm like questioning are like, I'm assuming we can control what the prompts are and like customize it for the meeting. And then my question is, how long does that take? And then at this point I'm like really curious, like what's the output of this? Like I want to know what it's gonna make.
Yeah.
That's what my question is in my head.
This format is really, really good for. I've had a lot of effective use of this format, just doing it myself with Post-its and Sharpies, and I know it's a really common format often, but it's pretty tough to use and run because you just have to deal with a lot of Post-its and Sharpies and stuff. And also it's really, really not good for remote teams, and this is a really important meeting format, so if you have a remote team, this can really help you out.
Would you be bored by that?
And the most important thing is that when you're done...
I see you hovering over the pause button.
Yeah, because like if I go back by like a couple seconds, so when you were saying that, because I had already kind of inferred that it was for a remote team, like though I already inferred those values. So like the questions in my head were like, I was looking at, these are the things people suggested. Sam, 0 likes, Sam, 1 like, Sam. So because it's you, I was like, is this the name of the person who wrote the card? Like, is there sometimes is it about anonymity, or is it about like attributing ideas to people? And then this like concept, what is the purpose of the like concept in terms of like, can you, again, is there anonymity, or is this about like creating alliances? Or I'm just
right. What would be the political dynamics of running a meeting like this? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
and the most important thing is that when you're done, you have a report here of everything you had in the meeting. So you don't have to take pictures of all these Post-its and try to read people's chicken scratch. You can just see for each prompt, what were the questions, what were the answers that each person gave, and how many people liked those answers. Shuffleboard is in private beta right now, so you can go to getshuffleboard.com to sign up, and you'll get notified when I launch the official app to the public. I'm also recording the entire...
Now I will shut the video off. So the questions in my head, I would have paused this video, and then I would have done this, scrolled up and down to see if I missed something. Because now I've got questions in my head around like, I want a story of somebody using it.
Yeah.
Like you walked me through it, and I'm trying to synthesize that into a story of how we would use it.
Right.
But I want a story of someone using it, and which is a narrative. I mean, I want a narrative, right? And then in that, I want like, because immediately, like I told you, this thing, make sure everyone is heard, resonated with me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, I get it. Everyone can get, it's not speaking, they can type their words out and put it there. And then I was like, but does that solve the problem of the people who don't think in the moment? Like, or who need time? So like I'm starting to go through, in the narrative that I'm trying to construct, there's little things that are pinging me around that, because I'm thinking about our situation. Like Chris as an engineer is super outspoken, and Lily as an engineer is super like introverted, and they are both super smart. And so I want to give Lily the space to like, for her communication style to like go away and think about things and come up with her insights and give her stuff. And that could just be about like how I run the meeting, right? Not the tool. So immediately I'm like reviewing the things in my team that I'm like trying to apply to this, whether it fits or not.
And what do you think, how does that sound? Do you think this would be helpful or not helpful to Lily as it stands from what you understand about it right now?
I mean, I think the things I'm starting to, in terms of value for the team, is like, I mean, because of the way Lily likes to work, she does work remotely. And so, sure, that would be great, so that she doesn't have to come in for the meeting. And by remotely, I mean like probably 2 blocks away. Like we sometimes people choose to work from coffee shops or at home or in the office or split their days up. And so I think not having to, like I have tomorrow, no, not tomorrow, it's Saturday. Tuesday, I have, we're trying to plan end of year goals for the whole team and trying to get, it's an all hands meeting. So how do we get everyone in this room for that? And then, I'm running this through that scenario, like what I want to do in that meeting, would this serve the purpose? So.
What do you think?
I haven't finished thinking about it, but the initial part is like, right now I'm not, my reaction is not 100%. What percent does it serve?
Yeah.
Is it 10%? Is it 50%? Like, what is it? So that is, because, we have a very, like, a set, like, numeric goal for something. So I'm like, this is the big goal. In each of our areas, can we come up with sub-goals, like, or, like, whatever, task strategies, like, that you think would work in your own area to apply to, that would get us there? And then, can we look at how those work with each other or not work with and how can we be aligned on how all of us decide to get to this? And because of course you're not in a silo, all of them will have dependencies, so we want to expose dependencies. So when I think about saying, okay, our end goal is this for the year, fiscally or whatever, and engineering, come up with like, what does this mean for you guys? So first I want people to understand the implications for each of their areas, and then I want them to generate ideas in each of their areas to help get toward that goal. And then if there's a lot of them, take a look and prioritize it. So what I'm saying, is it 10% or 50%? Like, is 10% just like collecting the ideas and then voting on, like, that's to me a low level of interaction. And then can we take the ideas and can we run them through other activities on here is the question I have.
What activities might that be?
Sorting.
Yeah, that's what you mentioned before.
Can we do sorting? Can they operate like when we do it on the sticky note? That sticky note will be used in an affinity diagram, and sometimes it'll be done on the whiteboard or we have butcher paper too that we will tape to the wall, and then we can circle the groups and name them, and then we can start, like, rip that off, take a picture, rip that off, and then start on another piece of butcher paper to sort them in a different way and rename them, and then look back at those pictures. But then we lift up those sticky notes and we put them on, say, a quadrant analysis. And then when that's done, then we pick up those sticky notes and we start listing them almost like a backlog, like for a prioritization activity. Like we take the insights we came up with from those 2 other activities and we say we have prioritization, then we put them in the order, and then we start maybe adding things to them like assignments or due dates or like, and then we do take a picture of that, and then maybe somebody has to go into Trello and enter them and whatever. So that's what I think about
So
in that specific meeting, that we're going to do a bunch of activities with the same sticky note, and it's going to be a pain in the ass coming out of it because we're going to have a bunch of photos and or random scribbles on half-ripped butcher paper, and it's going to be a pain in the ass, and someone's going to have to like sit down and try to make sense of it, and then we will like recycle those, but those sticky notes were used for like 4 activities.
Right. Fascinating. Because that is what I want you to run the shuffleboard for that meeting.
Okay.
And it sounds like it's, if I could rephrase, it sounds like at the high level, the contribution and stickies and sharing is like checking a box for you. Step 1. Okay, we need to be able to get stuff from people. They need to be shared. Check. Step 2 is all these other dimensions. So in my brain, to like the people in the video, I'm thinking like, okay, well, I don't need to worry too much more about like making sure the link is shorter or whatever. I need to make sure that this content that comes in can actually be shuffled or rearranged. And what's new to me,
Shuffleboard.
well, we're not there yet, but that's the goal, is that we need to get it rearranged and make it so that you can, and what's really interesting to me is what you're saying is that it needs to be the same sticky notes that we shuffle in different ways. It's not about rearranging or grouping or categorizing or affinitying, clumping once and then moving on. It's about doing it different ways and having the results from one thing sort of feed into the next. Right? The groups from the one feed into the quadrants of the next. The quadrants of one feed into the prioritized list of the next.
Yes. Because a sticky note could be used in multiple activities and then become like a user story on a backlog for Scrum.
Totally.
Or someone's individual task list, like if you look above my desk right now, some of those might have come from a meeting that I've like picked up and moved. We've discussed the difficulty, we've had this exact debate with the team about like Trello is okay, sticky notes are okay. We have trouble managing between. Trello that's not really the functionality of Trello, right? It mimics it in some ways, but it's not really the functionality of Trello. So like when the utility of the idea collection is to collect and document, but actually put to use, like there is more utility than that. Like we do stuff with it.
Yeah.
So activities.
Makes a lot of sense. So we have 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
I'd love to run through a quick demo and see if it works well.
Okay.
Unless there's anything else on this page that is calling out to you as something you have a question about.
I mean the call to action, I don't have an account, so do I create an account or do I join the wait list?
Yeah.
Is my question.
Oh, yeah, that's confusing.
Which comes first? And I'm assuming it'll tell me. Then if I try to key her, they're like, yeah, there's a wait list or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think my, and then after this, run amazing live meetings. To me, even though like, I think there's a difference between that sparked a little curiosity in me, and then the curiosity reaction was, how is it different then? And I started listing things in my own mind. I feel like as a problem statement, like if you had this is being a jerk, but like if you put like, don't lose another one of Lily's ideas again, you know, right?
Yeah,
like if
that's
you
awesome.
but you would obviously have to reword that in a generic way, but like the problems that are hitting me, I would never categorize as that.
Running amazing live meetings is like, well, my meetings are amazing or amazing, who cares?
Or they're live.
Right,
Like they're not dead. I don't know what that
Okay.
means. So it's too ambiguous in terms of a value statement for me.
What's hitting you is never lose another one of your team's great ideas again.
Yeah.
What's another one?
This one, like when that hit me,
that one?
make sure everyone is heard.
You're like, yep.
And then the other big problem to me is the one I brought up is like, what do you do something useful with all this shit you produce in a meeting? Like that is like the thing, right?
That's such a great way to say it.
Right? Like,
It's just recording this.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, I gotta, yeah.
But like, you make a lot of crap
Yeah.
in a meeting, and like it's pictures and whiteboard stuff and scribbles and our butcher paper, which I can haul out of the closet, and
So
our
true.
stuffed over sticky notes, and the room is a mess. And like, so if you want to follow that down, like, end a meeting and be able to walk out of the room without 20 minutes of cleanup, like,
Yeah.
or 3 hours of like transcription.
Yeah.
Like I don't. Those are the big problems to me that would pull me in that are not generic that make me think of WebEx.
I don't want you to think of WebEx.
Okay, well, that one made me think of WebEx. And then Sally Jesse Raphael was like, oh,
I don't
remember
actually
the 90s?
I don't super know who
remember
that
the
is.
80s? Because I'm
I
old.
do a little bit. Yeah.
I'm old, that's why I know who that is.
Well, this is exactly what I wanted. I think on video there's somewhere me writing these taglines that says like, well, this isn't right, but we'll test it and find out what it really should be. So
Yeah.
now I think I know, or at least I have a really good idea. This is like just a pile of gold. I can't tell you how useful this has been. This is incredible. Testament to the user experience design process.
It is.
Prototyping and sharing and getting
It
feedback.
is.
But you have been particularly helpful, and so many of the things you say, I'm just like running through scenario. I know I have a million follow-up questions. Well, we have, all right, real quick for like 5 minutes, can we just have you click join waitlist
Okay,
and see what happens?
joining the waitlist. Create your account, sign up with Google. Already have account, log in.
Sign up with Google.
Well, I don't really have a choice.
What would you rather do? What's your ultimate way of logging in? Your preferred
Okay.
method?
I'm old. I don't like single sign-on things like Facebook. I
Yeah.
never use Facebook. So when everyone's like, someone want, sign up with
Yeah.
Facebook, I'm like, oh. I don't like tying things back to these data giants who
Yeah.
like are jackasses. So I would have wanted to like create a login and password.
Email
Yeah.
and password. Yeah, totally.
I understand I'm like a dying demographic. So
No, I'm with you. It's just what I'm trying to figure out, how important is it, because it's just a pain to build.
yeah.
What would have happened if you saw that screen sign with Google if you were at your work computer? Would you have been likely to bail or reluctantly click sign up?
Do I do it if I'm time to time? Yes. My question, which I've muddied it up, my answer is like, if your problem statement on the front page had been more compelling, I would easily have clicked the Google sign up.
Yeah.
When it says that, and if like I still had a lot of questions about it, I would have I would have paused, and you may have lost me, because I am that like I don't like them. I'm just like that much about like tying everything together.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Okay, good.
because I have another vetting I have an email account, a Gmail account that I use to sign up for things.
Right.
There's one that's just junk, and there's one that's serious.
Oh,
That's
so-
where I vet it, and then that way you still one layer for my real email account
Right, that's
to
cool.
get to me. So I have a process. Okay, so we're in shuffleboard. Sprint retrospectives. Was that good? What was good? What was not good? Customer journey. What happened when people hear about simple brainstorm? What's on your mind? So this is
These
the
are some old sample data.
yeah.
This is something that somebody else put in there.
Fart sounds. I like donuts.
I did not put this.
What's this mean? I click to present. Whew, meeting's over.
So that doesn't, did it make sense to you what just happened there?
No. So I'm clicking through somebody else's things.
Yeah, this
I'm going
is,
through someone's
I didn't clear
underwear
out my
drawer.
database before. You'd have a blank. These would be empty.
Okay.
So
So
imagine
don't
there's
look at
nothing
this.
here.
Okay.
But imagine that these 3 ones are there.
Okay. So the thing I would probably do is customer journey, because this is just a thing. others or not. Join this meeting. Please set your devices to do not disturb. Okay. I'm clicking on that title and wanting to change it. And then I assume I just want to see, why can't I write things? Maybe I can. So yeah,
You're a little stuck.
I'm stuck. What will happen when people try our product for the first time? I'm clicking on words. Clicking on next.
You're clicking on words to edit them in place. So
Yeah.
what was your intention when you clicked into this? You were hoping to, if I can guess, preview what the meeting might be?
I was actually gonna role play.
Okay.
Like I was actually gonna try to.
What scenario were you role playing?
Well, I was the one starting the meeting,
Okay.
customer journey, and so I did the landing page, say the join the meeting. I assume at that point I would have copy and pasted into my Slack to everybody,
Cool.
and then click start the meeting. And then here, the first thing that came up, the question, I did not like the question. And I wanted to change the question. And that's the first thing I did as the meeting moderator. And then, when I couldn't answer it, I was like, am I not allowed to participate in the meeting too? And maybe that's good, but maybe I needed to also, because when we have a small team, we don't have the luxury necessarily of someone who just gets to be the moderator.
Totally.
So that's why I was trying to click on words to make it let me type things in. And then, so really this feels like somewhat all the other team members would be broadcasting at me here.
Right,
as
you're
the
not
moderator.
a participant as moderator. That's disappointing.
And then go through to the end. Whew, meeting over. Thank you for coming. Finish meeting. And then there's my meeting, customer journey. And then the slides have no answers because clearly I was role playing and nobody role played with me. And then this present button.
So that's not super obvious.
I don't know what that means.
Would you even want to present and start that meeting over again from that report? It's over. What were you hoping to get from that present button? Or just
The present
curious?
button I thought would be like present the findings of the meeting,
Oh yeah.
like in a different format.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So like sometimes, if I pulled up so sometimes we do a meeting and sometimes people take notes in the meeting in Google Docs and then afterward we'll share it out with people, like send out a link on Slack.
Yeah.
And it's a different visualization of what happened in the
Yeah.
meeting, whether it's pure text or sometimes people insert photos or put links into other things.
Yeah.
And either way, it's like somebody's version of like
Yeah.
some
totally.
sort of, what is it, translation of what
Yeah.
happened in the meeting. And that's what I assumed it was going to take whatever was here on the screen, if we had stuff here, and put it into some sort of format to like share
Gotcha.
with people.
Very cool.
That's what I thought.
Got some good work to do. I think I know what to fix though.
Yeah.
Well, again, I think we're definitely out of time. I've taken way more time than yours than I thought I would. So thank you for being patient and rolling with it because everything you were just saying was so useful. And I think I definitely know. I think I really do know what would be. I think I have a really good idea about what I would need to do with this product to make you run your next all hands with it, if that makes sense. Definitely some shuffling, communication, marketing, copy is actually one of the parts I find most difficult compared to the product stuff. So definitely some really good ideas, some improvements there. Thank you so much.
Is it gonna be ready by
appreciate it.
Tuesday?
We'll see.
Because all hands meeting Tuesday.
If I can get this,
Sam.
well, I'll tell you what would I need to fix in order for you to use it on Tuesday?
Let me type in the titles.
What if you could type in the titles and that was it?
And then let them contribute to it, right?
Yeah, if it was exactly as it was, but you could type in the titles, would you use it on Tuesday?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Would you be interested in hearing about our early customer pricing?
Nice job! Show me.
Well, it's... I have to think of some pricing.
Okay, now you're falling down. You're like, let you think about the value of this tool, and I'll be sending you something afterward.
If this was a real... It's not a real sales meeting, but let me ask you this. What are your... Can you tell me what you might expect to pay for a tool like this?
Okay, so the model in my head is like Slack, just because of it just so happens that's the tool we use most regularly, and to some degree it's also like Google, whatever the Google, like we pay $5 a month per person. Slack, what do I don't know, $6 or whatever. Like it's the same with our payroll HR system.
Yeah.
Like any other tools where we're in it together, it's per person per month, and then usually a discount for like if you pay for the whole year up front.
Right.
And so what I would think about is if you gave me a tool that just had the titles and then what it does now, I wouldn't pay for it. Because I was like, it's not enough yet to overcome the pain in the ass of the whatever. However, if it started allowing me to move things around and spit out the different, like aggregate, like off of the customer journey, here's your card sort, here's your, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like here's all your different things that you had going on in that meeting, and then here's the output for each of them, all tied together. Then I would look at it, but I would probably be still thinking of it in terms of like that under $10 per person per month model.
Okay.
Of yes.
And per person, what would that mean to you? People who are part of contributing in the meeting?
No, it means anyone with an email address from our company.
Oh, so you get it from the company, and then however big the company is, that's what you pay, and then anybody can use as much as they want. Is that very helpful?
Yeah. I mean, as much as they want. Like, I understand there's often tiers or limitations. Like certainly Google and Slack and all those things, they have like up until this many bits and bytes, and or up in like this much functionality. This is the plan you're on. As a company that like we're small and we don't have that many people. I mean, we don't have that many email addresses. Like we don't just have a bunch of email addresses for people. So like 100% participation is generally the norm.
Yeah. So
like on Slack, we don't have some people that are just some channel visitors.
No.
And like it doesn't make sense for us. So I always think like it's 100% participation across the company. When I'm pricing things out, I think about 100% participation across the company, and therefore all the other models are like if you have an Altality Monday our email address, you plug in the email addresses for those people, and that's like you're paying for essentially. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question?
Yes, this is more useful than you know. Like I'm really trying to figure out modeling what people's expectations are around that. It sounds like this is not the kind of thing that you would pay for to use as a customer for Tuesday because of the shuffle, which is what the grouping and ordering and filtering, which is what we expected. But it sounds like you might be really awesome to get your team as early beta customers testing the process, of course.
I tried to hold it in for all the recording.
Oh, you did?
It was just too much. Sorry.
Would you guys be potentially open to being for no cost? The pricing aside now, let's just be clear about that. Had to ask how that would work. Would you be interested in potentially being like an early alpha user and trying it out for a meeting?
I think that's like, we've always, as a startup, like Slack did free Slack before we did real Slack. Yeah. Because that problem I mentioned about stickiness and how it doesn't, like sometimes we want a tool to stick and then we don't know either culturally it's an issue or the tool doesn't fit our needs exactly, and then there's lots of reasons why stickiness I think doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is about like we didn't learn how to use it properly.
Yeah.
And then later we're like, oh shit, that did that too? We could have done. And certainly then there's other things that force us to pay for things like, like Slack, we just hit a wall and they started like hiding all our historical stuff.
Yeah.
So, and we use it as like a database of all the communications. So we're like, shh.
Well,
we can't
now we're
find.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, oh no, we gotta search. We can't search back that far. So we had to start paying. But we always get converted in that sense. And I think for us, like understanding, it's hard for us to make a choice about payment up front when we're not sure we're going to use it. And just because sometimes we don't have our act together and when we're unclear about the value proposition.
Yeah, totally.
But
Okay. Well, I said it before. Now it's even more useful than it was before. It was so useful as a conversation. Now it's even more useful. Seriously, you can always go back and watch this video. And the next one I'm going to do next is watch this entire video again and take notes for the whole thing and like put it through a backlog and prioritize it and figure out I need to fix this.
That you could use. No, I'm just
This is too many levels, dude. This is like turtles on top of turtles on top of turtles. Okay, thank you so much. If you're watching this video, stay tuned for the next one. We're doing another one today. I'm going to be like overwhelmed, but really super helpful and amazing. Thank you. Okay, stay tuned.
Bye.
Hello. We're doing our day. We have 2 usability tests today. You're our second one.
Okay.
And so I'm very excited to be here with a friend and coworker, Becky, who is a little famous
I'm the Becky.
in the video.
Right?
This is the Becky.
I am one of your users.
Yeah. You sent me an email afterwards that said you were chuffed, and I had to look up what that was, and I was immediately so worried. I was like, oh no, she's chuffed.
She's really mad. Yeah, no.
But it's because you were one of the archetypes that I chose as like one of the people who I wanted to build this product around, because for 2 reasons. One, functionally, you were the first one to run a retrospective that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I always just loved that format. It was just so good. I was like, this is what we needed. Like, thank you. Like, this is, I remember just thinking like, yes, yep, that's what we need.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved that format, and probably why I like started this project as opposed to other projects.
Chuffed again.
Yeah, more chuffed is happening. But also I think, and I said it in one of the videos, I think your attitude and personality is very, it's very well suited to your work, which is like energizing people, supporting people, figuring things out. Like you're out there to make it happen and figure out how to get it done for sure. And so I think that is actually something I think about in terms of like branding for this project. Is like I would like to exude Beckiness if possible. I don't want to exude like dry engineeringness or a bunch of design artiness without like hustle and clarity, if that makes sense.
It does.
So I'm very excited that we're talking.
Oh, happy to help.
Thanks for being here.
What do you need?
I want to just talk about times when you've run, and so you are actually the first test I've done where I've talked to people who have run, you've seen a little bit of this product a little bit already, so you know a little bit what it is. So trying to ignore the product that you've seen from this project so far, I want to just talk about like what it's like running meetings when you run them, what it's like specifically to get a bunch of input from a bunch of different people and try to get some kind of clarity and consensus around a topic when you're running those meetings.
Okay. So I'll start with just a little background of the kind of meetings I'm running lately.
Yeah.
So I am, I think my technical role is the Director of Software Solutions, which sounds very fancy. But I wear a lot of different hats because in essence, so I work at the University of Michigan right now we have an embedded software team in a research lab, which is not very common. But so we have a handful of software developers, we've got a UX designer, we also have someone who is a data curator, data wrangler, and myself. And so I wear a variety of different hats. Product manager, project manager / scrum master. I'm the main QA resource as well for any type of kind of manual testing we do of our apps that we build, we test on a couple different browsers and different screen resolutions and all that kind of fun stuff. I guess those are probably my main threads. So a lot of times I'm running a variety of different meetings. So some of the meetings are just project status meetings with people that are not very software agile-y type meetings at all. It's just I have to talk to the docs, the researchers, the MDs and the PhDs about what we're doing and hear from them what they need and kind of translate that. So I would never to them tell them, or it's not often something where it's an explicit, in those cases it's not like a user interview, it's just me sitting in on their meetings, hearing what they need, and then taking that back and turning it into something that maybe I take to my design team. So that's one type of meeting. I don't think we want to talk much about that. Within my group, we try to run, it's actually, a lot of it's started with things that happen at Menlo in Ann Arbor, a very Menlo-esque agile shop. So we have sprints. Our sprints right now are 2 weeks. I say right now because they had been week-long sprints, and then currently we're in the middle of an experiment to see if 2 weeks feels better because we were feeling a little meeting heavy. And so when we switched to 2 week sprints, we kind of have those meetings every 2 weeks instead of 1 week.
Yeah.
So we have estimation sessions. We actually run those twice in the sprint, so weekly. We have a kickoff meeting. We have some show and tell opportunities, both devs showing what they're working on to the team or the designer getting feedback. Most of our show and tells are actually just internal with our team, but sometimes they're the better ones are when we bring outside users in for feedback. And then what did I say? Estimation, kickoff, and then retro. And we have retros at the end of every sprint. So another thing to know, most of our team is co-located except for one person. And actually it's a little more complicated than that. One person works from home 1 day of the week. One person works from a different office 4 days of the week and only comes into our office 1 day of the week. One's part-time and doesn't work Mondays and Fridays. So it's a lot. We have to be very careful about when we're asynchronous and when we're synchronous, and when sometimes that is a big factor in our meetings, is kind of where are we all going to be to make this meeting happen. So, did that answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell me about that asynchronous stuff. Does it prevent you from scheduling meetings? What is the biggest pain point around that asynchronous?
Right, well, there's a few. So let me see. You tell me how many I list after I list them all. So one is I'm somebody who really likes to talk as opposed to, say, Slack, right?
Yeah.
So thankfully we're all in the same time zone within this group at least. And so oftentimes, I've seen Slack really effective. I'm in a different Slack channel for a group that has some people in California, a large group of people in Europe, and then plenty of people in Boston. And so, for them, they use Slack pretty effectively because they have to, because of time zone constraints. We don't have as many of those, but I've seen a lot of times where we have conversations that get buried in misunderstandings about what somebody meant, and people are typing before someone else has finished their statement. And I'm always one of the people that says, hey, can we just stop and have a quick screen share on this, a quick Google Hangout, usually at the U where you're using a software called Blue Jeans. Zoom is very similar. Sometimes we use Zoom. Mm-hmm. So I'm always one who wants to talk it out. I say in person, but I really just mean face to face. So I'm totally comfortable with it being on a screen share, but it's usually very easy with the other 5 of us that are in the same office to just kind of stand up and say, hey, can we just have a quick powwow on this? It is not as easy for that one poor guy who's in somewhere else and who's really just relying on us to ping him on Slack to even know to be aware. Yeah. So that's one hard thing, is just to be able to integrate when or we may have a conversation here in the room and then realize, oh shoot, we forgot to tell him. We didn't put it on Slack because we stopped, because Slack was getting out of control or whatever. So that's one hard thing. We just have a hard time, I think. It's a known problem that we're, honestly, it usually comes up most retrospectives and we're always trying something new, but to share information when it's asynchronous like that too, and when it's co-located, because we might make a decision or we might have a quick talk about a document and we didn't bring that person in, and so that's kind of difficult. And then it's also, of course, I'm sure you'll experience it in these videos sometimes, hold on, my audio's not working, oh whoops, I was on mute, whoops, yeah. I didn't realize, so even the screen share stuff is difficult. But then other issues, other pain points, I think we do have a variety of goofy schedules. So the person that's not here on Mondays and Fridays makes it so that we can most of our meetings have to happen on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. And we start getting a little meeting fatigue, because it feels like, oh gosh, we've got 2 meetings in a row. I'm done. Sorry, that was one more. I felt like there was one more, Sam, and I'm forgetting it. So, and I guess anytime you have any type of meeting like that, it's just difficult to collate the information that did get shared.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you guys do that now, like collating and sharing the results?
Yeah. Couple of different ways. So we're getting much better at just pulling up a Google Doc at the beginning of some sort of meeting. If it's any type of meeting that has somebody on video, we try our best, and we're not always great at it, but somebody pulls up a doc, just starts typing, and then shares that link with the rest of us, so that we try to be on video as well. But typically what happens, and this could be just because we haven't explicitly set some ground rules for this. Often what happens is I have a machine open, and it's my link that we're following. So I'm on a screen that I'm just sharing with the rest of the office and that one guy. So it's essence 2 callers. And the reason I point that out is because sometimes other people aren't actually on their computers. They're just in the room with me, and I'm on a computer. So even if we have some Google Doc where we're sharing things, it's not always that all of us are actively in the Google Doc. It might just be 2 of us in the Google Doc. But so that's one way, is we've been trying to just grab a Google Doc. For retrospective, well, let's see. Yeah, for retros, we used to do something on a whiteboard, take a picture of that whiteboard, put it in a Slack channel called, #whiteboard. Which doesn't work that well for us because we have the free Slack because we're cheap, and so those go away after a while.
Yeah.
So Slack isn't a great spot for us to have as our archive.
Yeah.
So then we opened up a Trello board for our retros, and we would make a card, like in essence, sorry, I guess I have to go on a little side tangent about the retros we run. So oftentimes we used to run a version of a retrospective that in essence was what's going well and what's going not so well, and then pick a couple of those pain points to focus in on and make some action steps out of that, right? Some flavor of that. So for a while we were doing one, I think I just Googled and found this, and it was, you drew a picture of water in like a boat, and what filled your sails this week, and what was an anchor that weighed you down. In essence, right? Same thing. What was going well, what was not going so well. So for a while, what we do is have in the Trello board, there'd be 2 pictures, a picture of the boat, and so in essence, the top, what went well and what didn't, and then another picture of the action plan. But a big problem with that was then, nobody was going back to look at these action plans, and then guess what? Next retrospective would come up. We'd complain about the same things, and then we'd say, well, whatever happened? We said we were going to do this thing. How are we doing on that? We're not very good at keeping track of the ongoing experiments that we're trying to run. So we're actually running another experiment right now. This is the Menlo part, the running experiments. That's a phrase they like to use a lot. But we just started using a different format for a retrospective that we saw it in an Atlassian blog, and it was called a Project Status Health Monitor. Those 4 words, I might not have the right order. And in that, in essence, the idea there was that if you can picture with me rows of different project artifacts or project time points, project milestones, something. And then the columns are different dates when you do this health check. So for instance, maybe one of the things is, how is the team doing with communicating with the client or setting expectations with the client, let's pretend. Then the concept is you go ask the team at a retrospective moment to say, how are we doing with that thing? They give you thumbs up or thumbs down. Traffic lights, red, yellow, green. And you watch, and you do that over time. And so you actually watch over time if you're improving in certain areas, or hey, this is always red, what's going on, or whatever. So we modified a version of that just now to talk, because we noticed that a lot of our retro items were not so much, the tasks weren't things we could turn into Jira cards. We use Jira to manage our, feature and bug backlog. But the tasks we had were like, oh, we should change stand up and have it be, we should do stand up this way, or we should change the dashboard that we're using for this, or it was always, most times it was process things, like, hey, we should have the designer come in at this point in the process instead of that step. So what we did in this retrospective experiment we're running now is we came up with process points. So how are we doing on information sharing? How are we doing on the initial setting of the requirements for a project? How are we doing on, there's like a dozen of them. How are we doing on managing scope, for instance? And then also at the bottom of the spreadsheet, we've started making that be where all of our running experiments are going. So for instance, I said we're doing sprints are now 2 weeks instead of 1 week. That's one of the rows that says, do we still like the sprints at 2 weeks, or do we think we should go back to 1 week or change it to some other increment of time? So that's been at least a way for us to keep track of the experiments we're running, sort of. But it's hard to know like when that experiment was introduced. Like we literally just started adding the experiment stuff like in our last retro 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I don't know. Where were we? What was I supposed to be telling you?
This is really on point and interesting.
Okay,
This is exactly relevant. The retro is what I was going to get to, right? Of all those formats, I think, well, actually, there's some that the estimating sessions might be interesting too, but I wanted to know what those were like.
Retros look like.
And what format they were in. I mean, that was all the questions I was going to ask.
I'll tell you, one of the reasons we started to switch, is we just the boat one got a little stale. And we just wanted something different and so there's cool. I think it's called like funretrospectives.com. Every once in a while I just kind of go there, skim through some, and just try to spice it up a little. Cool. So we've done some another one we do, I wouldn't say routinely, but that we like doing, we do maybe twice a year, is like a prospective. Instead of saying like what went well and what didn't go well before, we kind of just switch the questions around, and this is not my idea. Like we stole this from somewhere, right? But at the next sprint, I'll be happy if, or it will be frustrating if at the next sprint we really sucked at defining requirements, or who knows. And it just kind of puts a little more proactive spin on it, like, hey, I can do something about this instead of the reactivity.
Like, well, what if we screwed it up again or something?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
And it gives somebody ownership. Like all of a sudden, if you volunteer something, like I'll be really frustrated if at the next sprint, we didn't do a good job of, blah, blah, blah. Then I'm going to kind of hope that you'll help keep us accountable for that, right? It'll give you a little more ownership of what you can do to be the change, as opposed to just kind of kvetching about that we didn't do it again last time.
Totally.
So we do try to we try to switch our retros a little bit. And I didn't say that there was also a time where we switched. Do you know what Mural is? It's an app.
No.
It's kind of like an online whiteboard app.
Is it Miro?
Mural, M-U-R-A-L.
Interesting. There's another one called Miro.
Oh, okay.
It's the same thing.
Okay. They like the jazz
I
and
know.
the sharks. So Mural, we tried for a while because in essence it has like the concept of sticky notes. So some of you can drag over sticky notes. And so we tried to run retros that way for a while too, because, sorry, I gotta go back. Sorry. So, at one point you were talking about the co-location and asynchronicity and things like that. We did look at our plate of meetings and kind of picked which ones are more important to be co-located for and which ones aren't. And we designed our sprint cadence, and the day that one guy who normally works at a different part of campus comes here with that in mind. So we said, hey, you come on Thursdays because it's most important for you to come for these meetings that we do, and we'll do those meetings on Thursdays, right? Yeah. So retro was one actually that didn't make the cut that we thought we could do co-located for a while. That's also kind of an experiment we're running on. Is he coming on the right day, or are we having the right meetings with the right people at the right time? So for a while when we were co-located, before we did that Google Sheet Health Monitor one, which is what we've been doing for the past month, I'd say, we were using Mural and we just made a template on Mural of what went well and what didn't and what should we do next time. And people would all have to sign in together on their own. So everyone had to bring their laptop, and then everyone, it was funny, one person doesn't actually have a laptop on the team. the part-time person who, she
The
didn't.
desktop?
She only has a desktop.
Oh, interesting.
So we had to find her a laptop so that this would work. She used her phone, but the Mural phone interface was a little rough. Because you want to see a lot more on your screen
Right.
than you can on a phone. But in essence, we would drag and drop sticky notes. We would try to declare at the beginning of the meeting. There's a handful of colors, so a lot of times we were messing around with different ways to say one of the questions was, do I want to know who wrote which sticky or not? There's a lot of value to that, then there's also some not
Yeah.
value to. It's not that there's not value, but there's
Yeah.
risks to that
Yeah,
typically.
yeah.
And sometimes if you're using an actual sticky in a room and you're all using that same yellow one, maybe you can tell handwriting apart, maybe you can't. But I think some people like the anonymity of not
Interesting.
knowing who's they're sticky, but we didn't want that. We kind of wanted to know who was saying these things.
Right.
So we would try to pick a color, okay, you do the green stickies today, and you do the blue, and you do the pink and the yellow and the orange and
Yeah.
purple. I think that's all the colors that they offered. But
Okay.
yeah. Why did I start telling you about that?
You were doing so great. I have a million questions about Mural.
Okay, yeah,
So you
yeah.
have been running meetings through an online sort of tool that's like a
Yeah.
virtual tool that's bringing everybody together. It's very interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
And it has a sticky note concept.
Right.
Which is similar to what I'm doing.
Yes.
But you described it as a virtual whiteboard.
Yes. I think
that
that's
accurate?
I think that's what they call it in their kind
Yeah.
of branding, marketing stuff.
So
So
in Mural you can kind of put whatever you want wherever. It's like unstructured.
totally unstructured.
Yeah.
And I hope people from Mural aren't watching this, because one of the problems that we had with it, there was our design guy kind of figured out how to make it work for our needs, and no one else could. So everyone else is like, I accidentally moved the whole board. I don't know where I am anymore. I can't zoom at the right level. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened. I've been putting my things in the wrong place. So he kind of figured out how to you can lock a certain aspect ratio or lock certain boxes. So in essence, he made this template board of what went well, what didn't, and he made that almost like a stamp, that you could stamp on this
Right.
whiteboard, and we did the same board over and over, but no one else knows how to do that. And one time we accidentally unlocked it, and then it moved, and so it was,
Interesting.
yeah, it was a little too, it met our needs of trying to get stickies on the plate, and everyone could kind of have that free-for-all sticky moment, but it didn't have almost enough guardrails for us. I think maybe we jumped in with no guardrails, and then
Yeah.
maybe even set up some things that didn't work for us because of that.
That's good to hear,
So.
because that's kind of my hypothesis, is that a little more structure would make those a lot more useful in
Yeah.
lab meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine something where if Mural had, I don't think Mural had a template for this. I think Michael's his name. That's okay. I think Michael made the template, but maybe Mural had one.
Right.
I don't know. We could look and see later. But yeah, I would kind of want to have that template figured out so that I didn't, put
Right.
stickies off the grid and have the zoom changing on me all the time and stuff like that.
So what is that template like? Is it just question box?
It's just there's a space for what went well and a space for what didn't go well, and then I think we added a third column for so in essence what we would, so let's start with those first two columns. It was just big columns, and then you have to drag over, you drag a sticky, there's stickies on the left, and you drag a square or a rectangle or a circle. They have 3 sticky shapes to choose from. And then you start typing in it, and I think maybe once you get out of the sticky is when it's visible to everyone else. And then usually people either dragged another sticky or just copied that one and typed in that one. So the stickies can land wherever, and so people were just kind of dragging in and typing. So usually what we do is kind of say, okay, and that's part of the Scrum Master retro. Whoever's running the retro can usually kind of sense when people are slowing down.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a little harder to do in this world because I was, I didn't always know, are they typing another sticky or not? But usually you kind of have to use your spidey senses to know when the ideas have stopped flowing and people are starting to, look at their phones and things.
Yeah.
But then there is some sort of feature in Mural, and again, only our design guy has the Jedi mind mastery of this tool right now to kind of maybe, lasso them all and then align them so they turn into more of a grid than just wherever. But then you have to unlasso them, because oftentimes what we do in our retros after that is we look for themes. We start organizing them. We start, we kind of read through and, oh, you wrote that too. So for a while, there was actually a couple different things that would happen. Sometimes, because most people are typing and they're not quite reading, people don't, how do I say this? People with a lot of thoughts and opinions and ideas are typing for a while, getting all their stuff out, and then they start reading everyone else's. Sometimes your more introspective people are not writing anything down and watching everything else read for a while, and then they come in at the end. Sorry to typecast anybody, but so there's a couple different ways that people watch that happen. So one thing I noticed is that some people would end up writing the same sticky, right? Writing their thoughts in the same sticky, which definitely happens if you're doing it with actual sticky notes, right? But then with the mural board, what I saw happening sometimes is somebody would read, say my sticky, and instead of adding another sticky, mural also has icons, because I think so it's got some like clip art. So somebody found a thumbs up clip art and a thumbs down clip art or thing like, and so people would start dragging clip art and just sticking it on that sticky, which usually meant I second that sticky. I'm not going to type it myself.
Right.
Like I agree with that. So, it wasn't quite upvoting. In that case, they used that iconography to just say ditto.
Right.
But then later, what we would do was we would go through these, kind of group them in different themes thematically. Even if you said two different things, they were both about database architecture, so let's put those in group tone together. And then we would kind of go through. Right now, we've got such a small team. We don't do a lot of formal upvoting. It's more informal upvoting of just to say which one of these guys should we tackle right now, and we just kind of ask around if anyone has any real passions for one. And then that third arm of the board is when we would try to say, okay, well, what should we do about this? And those we just dump as text boxes then.
Yeah. So one of the things you're doing when you get the stickies in a kind of a big pile is you're aligning them in a grid, or the designer is. You want them a little organized and readable. And another thing you're doing is you're grouping them together.
Right.
And it sounds like the groups have a thematic theme, maybe even like a name. Like do you think it would make sense to name one of those groups, or is the top card usually good enough to describe?
Yeah, good question. I think it depends on the size of, how the amount of cards that are coming through.
Yeah.
I like to name those groups, but sometimes we didn't necessarily codify that on the mural board. There's no good reason why necessarily. Like I think I would like to. I would say out loud, okay, these all look like they're about database architecture, and that's just as far as it would go. But yeah, definitely. Honestly, the lassoing and lining them, that's just to help us read them, because then the first thing we do is move them and stack them and make them unreadable again. So I don't even know if that part is that helpful. I mean, we do it, so we must have liked doing it. But.
What do those groups look like? Besides, are they just clumps, or is there rows or columns, or do you?
We don't get that fancy. A lot of times it's clumps. Yeah, because at that point, what you're looking at, a lot of times the retrospective improvement is often, not always, but it's often related to the group as opposed to an individual item in the group. So at that point, it's okay to lose a little bit of that detail, because what you really want to get out of it is like, okay, there's clearly, this is a hot button topic, so let's dig into that. And sometimes it's, the action item that we identify has nothing to do with those original cards. It's just like when you're fighting with a significant other, and you thought it was about the dishwasher, but it was actually about how much they appreciate you and show affection or something. So it's sometimes that kind of thing happens too. So that's why a lot of times the grouping, it's nice to see everything, but a lot of times the real meat and potatoes come.
Recontextualization. We're saying this is really about this. We all agree, yes. Okay, it's now that.
Yeah. Yep.
When you have that third tier rather, that third group of things, do you rewrite post-its, or do you just grab the best ones and put them over there?
No, well, we neither. I guess we rewrite. We leave all that raw stuff. We kind of leave raw, and then we either make a new post-it or just like a text box that says, okay, so are you talking about hold on, let me make sure I understand your question. When we talk about the action items that are going to come out of that retro, what are we going to do about it? Yeah, that often is just a new statement, because the retro is like, I didn't like the database architecture process stunk or something, right? Like that's what the post-it note says. I don't know why I'm bagging on database architecture today.
It's the database day.
My favorite theme. But then in the last column, it might say that oh, we need to have every time we're going to do an architecture, task or card, we should have a quick pre-flight meeting about it. Like that's what the thing that gets on a post-it is just, this didn't go well.
Right.
But the process, the improvement to the process is very different wording about, what's our idea for how we're gonna make it go better the next time.
It's a different concept entirely.
Totally different, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Let me just see what's going on.
Your note page is so lit.
I know. Well, I have it all on video, so I don't
Okay.
feel like I'm gonna. There's gonna be another video of me watching this video,
Watching the video.
taking all the notes and pieces.
I imagine if people watch these videos, they're gonna probably watch them on like 1.5 speed. So
Right.
then when they watch the like 1.5 speed,
What I-
watching,
I'm watching.
it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little Elvin and the Chipmunk style.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? How are we doing on time? 35 after.
Okay.
I would like to ideally we can get to a usability test
Yeah.
before we wrap, but I have a couple small questions.
Mhm.
Okay, you mentioned people who don't have laptops, but many
Yeah.
people do have laptops in the meeting. It sounds like everybody but one has a laptop.
She's got one now.
She has one now.
Yep. Hmm.
Do they have their phones?
They do have their phones.
And how do you feel about people using their phones in meetings?
I feel like I'm not doing a good job I'm not a very good leader in that department.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so we're all people. We're all, like, most of us in this group are parents. We got kids in elementary school who are getting strep throat. We got stuff. So, like, I don't want to say, like, no phones, right? I don't want to do that. But anytime there's a phone, within your hand, you just want to just pop it open, just see. Oh my gosh, I got a notification, And so but I haven't talked to the team about this. So right now we all bring our phones. Personally, I would like to not have the phone be a thing that is grabbed. But we all do it, and I haven't said no to it. I think at one point before that, the one woman on the team had a laptop. She used her phone for Mural, and she did a fine job of doing, she would do Mural and then turn it down. So I don't think I'm opposed to people using like a mobile app for things, as long as they have the discipline to say, and I'm done with that portion where I need to use the mobile app and now I'm going to put it away. So I think it would just have to be one of those kind of awkward conversations that you just have to have, that's just like, hey, I'm thinking that we're just going to use our phone for this, and then it goes back in the pocket, right? So
Do you feel comfortable having that conversation with your team now, or would that be like a hesitancy?
I think I feel comfortable now, but it's goofy since I've been, how long have I been with this team? Almost 4 years now, and we've never talked about it. So it's like that weird thing, like the longer you go, like the awkward it,
Now it's like a thing.
Right, yeah, like I never knew that guy's name. Now I can't ask him because I've known him for 4 years, right? So, but I think it's fine. We're really good people. And like, look, I've got a watch. Like, like I'm one of those people who's getting notifications in the middle of the meeting and awkwardly looking at my watch instead of your face. So like, I get it. That's where we are. And so people just have to kind of set ground rules for these things now that maybe we didn't have to before.
Well, that's cool. I mean, that was one of my biggest fears with this project, and I had designed some ideas about how to get around that. And in every conversation, I've asked people, and they've all kind of said, "It's fine."
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
I mean, I think it's like I'm trying to think if it would be, I don't know. It's one of those things where maybe there's like a blog post once or a little note once in your app, or I don't know. It's called solution bucketing. I'm giving you solutions to problems that might not exist, but like, maybe it's some kind of reminder at the beginning that says, talk about the ground rules for how you're going to use your phone after this, or something like that. That might be a nice conversation starter for people that to just kind of say, hey, this is a new way of doing things, so you might need to set new ground rules for it.
Yeah. We just did 40 minutes in problem space.
Oh, perfect.
So we can get into all kinds of solutions now. You can tell me all your different ideas. Can I pull these curtains closed back?
You sure can. You're getting blinded, aren't you?
A little.
See if we can figure it out. Those curtains both look, smell, and sound like they're from the early 80s, and that's because they are.
So dramatic. Waving. Oh, the video is okay. Good. I want to make sure it wasn't too dark.
Like,
Okay, will you maybe sit here with us?
Sure can.
I'm gonna turn this bit off. I'll just edit this. We'll maybe take a quick cut. Go somewhere there. so we can set this up. That's normal. No, it's totally and I need to start a. Oh, come on. Oh, how dare you? Okay, good.
This is how the sausage gets made, man.
This is it. That's what this whole. This is
Waiting
my
for things
life
to
lately.
compile, yeah.
It's
Reading
this-
Stack Overflow.
This is sausage getting made. That's it. Okay. Oh, can I join your Wi-Fi? Is that possible? Let's
There
see.
should be an MGuest one right there. The
Oh yeah, I've been on it a million times. Let me just make sure this connects before we start. This. Make sure you are fine. Did it work? Yes. Okay. Okay, so we have about 20 minutes left before we want to hit stop officially, and I'd like to just sort of show you what I've got so far in Shuffleboard. You've seen a few of the early videos, a little bit. They're so long you couldn't
I
possibly
don't
watch
actually
very
look.
much.
Yeah. I mostly just watch the beginning and then I look through to see if there's any other interesting tidbits. Yep.
Good.
So.
Well, you're going to get a glimpse at the latest. And this is a sort of a standard usability test. I know you know these very well, but sort of for the benefit of the camera, also I'll just say that we want you to think out loud, and I want to hear solution space. I want to hear ideas or suggestions, anything that's coming to mind or confusing as we go through this. And I'm sure I'll ask you a bunch of questions as we go.
Cool.
Okay, so let's say that you somehow came across, or a friend told you that there was a tool that you could use that might help out with your meetings.
Are you recording this screen too?
Yes.
Okay. Oh boy, here we go. Okay, so somebody told me there's this great tool that's going to help
Yes.
me with my meetings. I will say, awesome.
Cool.
What will it do to help me?
Here's the link.
Okay, I'll check it out. Okay, Shuffleboard. Get Shuffleboard. Go to dashboard. What's my dashboard?
You can do that.
Okay, sorry. I will. Yeah. So I think as I'm thinking out loud through this, I'm like, what is my dashboard? I haven't done anything yet. Why do I have a dashboard to go to?
That's a bug. I forgot to log
Okay.
out before I gave it to you.
Sorry, it's okay. Run amazing live meetings. A little superhero gal. Okay. Shuffleboard puts brainstorms on autopilot. Okay, I like that.
So let's pause here. What are you thinking
yeah.
about this so far?
Run amazing live meetings. I think that I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Okay.
When I see brainstorms, I started thinking about, like, is this just for certain types of sessions? Like, I often don't think of my retro as a brainstorm.
Yeah.
It probably is, but I wouldn't think of it that way. But I also have lots of, I didn't talk much about the product hat that I wear, but when we're doing, product design stuff with it's me and the UX designer often together in a room, throwing things on the wall and stuff. That is what I think is a brainstorm. So
That's a really good point.
but I still would be like, the amazing live meetings is what excites me, because that's what I have to do a lot of. I think the other part of that, though, so for me, in my role right now, I have a lot of meetings within just the University of Michigan, and I have a lot of meetings that I have with other collaborators at other institutions, like other academic institutions. And then what we often think of as live meetings are our face-to-face meetings. So like twice a year, we go to the same place together.
Yeah.
And so I think that's another one that I'm starting to wonder, what is a live meeting mean here? Is this some sort of way to help me when everyone's in a room together, or
Yeah.
no? Yeah. So.
Well, this is a really important copy for me. I kind of know I don't like it, but I don't know what I want it to be instead. Those are really new, interesting. That's really useful. If you had to write this for me based off what you know about Shuffleboard so far.
That's cheating. No.
Speaking of solution space, do my work
Right.
for me.
I'm wondering, I don't know if this is too like buzzword bingo, but like collaborate in real time
It's
type
so
of
much better than
thing
live.
feels, like the real time collaboration feels better than live.
Yeah.
And if it's collaborate, then I kind of know better than that it's that it's. I guess that's maybe a different word than it's almost the brainstorm word that I understand. It's a variety of different real time things I can do with somebody.
You laughed, but you had a great answer. That's
Okay.
very useful.
All right.
I like it.
I'm gonna have to add copy editor to my
into
to
your
my hats.
long list of ideas. or roles.
All right, so join waiting list. Okay, I get
Real
that.
quick.
Yeah.
What was the first thing you thought of when you heard about shuffleboard? And I guess maybe that's something you've heard already from the videos potentially, but
Oh, like the name, the
Yeah.
brand Shuffleboard. I thought of the game Shuffleboard for sure, which I love.
that's what people say. Old Italians.
Yeah. I have actually, well, she's a young Italian, but a friend of mine had, she grew up in Detroit, and she at her family home, they had a shuffleboard court in the backyard. Yes. So I've played shuffleboard with old Italians before in Detroit, but
My Italian time was more of a bocce crew, but we'll leave it at that.
so, but board, I mean, like, any play on the word board makes sense to me.
Okay.
That's board, like, I'm using Trello boards, I'm using Jira boards, I'm using whiteboards, like,
Cool.
so that to me already, like, I didn't immediately think, oh, weird, he's sending me a sports link.
Okay.
I thought, oh, right, boards, shuffle boards. And so I guess the shuffle part of it, I often, I think about both the physical shuffling of items on boards, and then
Yeah.
the secondary shuffling of boards. Like, oh crap, which, like, it's the retrospective board. Where is that?
Yeah.
Like, do I have to pull that up in Google Doc? And where's the notes from that? And I do a lot of shuffling of
Actual
the boards themselves in addition to the items on a board.
I've
So
not considered that.
I like that too.
Okay, cool.
Oh, he hasn't considered it. Okay. All right. So, okay. All right. A video with Sam's face right there. Okay. I like having a video. I like if it's, let's see how long this video is. Can I see how long that
good
is? Let me
question.
just check. I might have to, I had to play it. Okay. Pause it.
Everyone-
Oh, no, don't listen to him. 3 minutes feels a little long for me.
Yeah.
A lot of times something like that, I'll probably start watching I'll give you about 15 seconds max. And I probably also want there to be some closed captioning in case I don't want to bother getting some
good
audio on
idea.
there.
Yeah.
And if I like what I'm seeing, I'll keep watching. But if it's just like, oh, this is just like marketing dribble, I don't care. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck this is. So this video's got to catch me early, and if it's going to be 3 minutes, it better be worth my time.
Would you watch it now, or would you scroll to the bottom to do something else first?
Well, now that I saw it was 3 minutes, I would probably keep going before I went to it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but if it was quick enough, if it's like sub 30 seconds, then I usually I hit it anyway. But if it's more than 30 seconds, I might question it. So
Cool.
yeah. So, but I do want to say that I really, really do. There's an inflection moment when I do want to see like a video, and
Yeah.
it's just so much easier sometimes for me. So
Maybe there's two or something.
yeah. So, well, wait. What did you think?
Maybe there'll be two videos,
Right,
or
yeah.
we do something else. Yeah,
something
totally.
after I'm in, or I don't know. Yeah, or that gets sent to me later. I don't know. Take the pressure off your collaborative workshop. So there's collaborative and there's workshop. Yeah. Take the pressure off of them. So I don't know. Okay, so I guess I better read these to figure out what pressure I'm in.
Well, it didn't really resonate with you at first.
No. Well, yeah. I'm trying to think. I will say, because we no longer, I'll tell you what is annoying. I carry my backpack everywhere now, and in that backpack are always Sharpies and a bunch of Post-its, because you never know when a meeting like this will strike. And then all of a sudden, like, depending on what the workshop is, some of these are a lot of pressure to just, like, bring all that supplies, and then, like, oh, crap, everyone's, like, somehow you have to magically be ready before everyone else is, and but, like, so that's some of the pressure I feel about but, like, I don't know. For me, I don't feel a lot of pressure. This is a thing I do. But, like, if it were instead of take the pressure off, wording that's more just like, make it simple, make it easy, make it clean, make it quick, those types of things. But I don't know, other people might feel pressure. Maybe it's just because I'm so used to these. So
I think it's I think that maybe that came from people who are feeling more pressure, but that's why I'm glad I'm talking to you, because your role is somebody who tends to be at the center of these meetings. You're running these all the time.
So run engaging collaborative meetings, capture feedback with simple guided prompts that people answer on their phones. Okay.
What are you thinking?
Well, at first I was thinking, sorry, I keep pointing at the screen, I don't think it matters, but the run engaging collaborative meetings and the capture feedback part didn't seem to be related.
Totally.
And then as soon as I saw, they're going to answer these things on their phones, I thought, interesting. I've never seen that before, but I see why you were asking me about that earlier. So I'm intrigued. Slightly skeptical, but intrigued.
Okay.
Right?
Good. That's why I want you.
So the best part of paper and markers without the hassle. See, that speaks to me,
Yeah,
right? Capture
cool.
lots of small ideas quickly and arrange them in real time, just like on a whiteboard. Love that. That grabs me.
Cool.
Designed to enhance real-time in-person discussion, not to replace that. That is really awesome too for me. That speaks
Cool.
to me.
Very cool.
Never lose a good idea. No more taking pictures of whiteboards. Oh, bless you. Bless you. Right? That is right up my alley. And make sure everyone is heard. Shuffleboard works great for remote teams. 2, it's designed to keep everyone's focus where it should be in the meeting. Okay. I think when I read that at first, when I see for remote teams too, I'm like, oh, is it not supposed to be for remote teams? Is it replacing in-person teams? Because right above there it talked about in-person, but I guess I never processed until reading this copy about is it aimed at one audience over the other, or is it aimed at the audience that's a combo, right? Which is oftentimes what I deal with, and
We need to clarify that a little
so that would be helpful. It's designed to keep everyone's focus where it should be in the meeting. Now that's really cool because with those poor people that are remote, I mean, it just sucks for them, and they're trying. And the other thing is when you can see them, they've got like, that their camera is like the screen that they're supposed to be watching is here, but you see them over here because they're on their other screen.
Totally.
That their focus is not in that meeting. So that's interesting to me, that idea. Okay, ooh, we got a whole series, 100% trans. Oh, I know that. He's making these videos. Okay.
Let me ask you that.
Yeah.
Is it interesting to you, would it be interesting to you if you've seen this, that this was a transparent company where you could, where this was being built live?
No.
That's really helpful.
Yeah,
That's really helpful. I don't know.
I think it would be an interesting thing. I don't think I want it on the homepage. I just don't care.
It's not that relevant.
It seems, like self-aggrandizing.
Yeah.
I can't pronounce that. Self-aggrandizing?
Yeah.
Is that even the right word? I don't know.
Yeah, I
but
think
I'm just
so.
like, okay, I don't care. I just want you to help me
Get
with
me
this
to
thing.
the thing,
Get me
yeah.
to the thing. Yeah.
Totally. That has a lot more
So-
emphasis in the color and the button. It's got more emphasis in parts that are kind of important to you.
Right, that were important to me.
Totally.
Yeah. Now, if this is, designed for startups who are like, if your target audience is a bunch of startups who are trying to run this stuff, they might feel differently. I'm kind of an old-fashioned curmudgeon, so
We'll see.
Yeah.
I don't know that they will
Alright,
care,
okay.
actually. We will find out.
Okay. All right. Now what? What would you like me to do now?
What would you do?
Well, in this case, I'm not sure if I should go to the dashboard or join the waitlist, but it sounds like that might be a bug.
It would
right.
normally say here,
Sign up or
create account
log in.
or log in.
Yeah. I would. Okay, here's one beef of mine.
Yes.
It's not a beef, but I get a little annoyed when the first thing I have to do is create an account to get to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
I would much rather something that says like try one, and I like. You always eventually you need to get their email address, right? You need them to get an account. I get that. So it's like even though I get annoyed anytime I have to give anyone my email address, and I have a special email address just for those email addresses, we probably all do now. But I do like it, and I don't know if everyone would say this, but I like it when it's like try it, and then I try it and get a little hooked, and then all of a sudden when I want to do something like save it or share it, then it's like, to do that, log in. And then, because then I'm a little like, well, okay, I like it, it's worth it. Like, then I'm willing to decide if I, at that point. So but if there was a sign up or whatever, I guess I'd have to sign up, right? So, to see what I want to see.
Would you, based off what you've done so far, would you want to sign up?
At this point, I'd probably have to watch that video to decide.
Would you watch the video?
I think so. Based on
I'm
this
curious.
copy, yeah,
Okay.
I'd want to see at least what it is. Yeah.
Would you watch a little bit and see if it's marketing BS or actually useful?
Right. And I mean, of course, it's got to have some marketing BS. But what I
Right.
want it to say is, this is what it looks like. This is how people use it.
Yeah.
Here it is being used. I don't want just like cartoon characters
Doop,
saying,
doop,
"Oh,
doop,
I
doop."
hate
Yeah.
like meetings are hard, whiteboard." Like I don't want that, but I want I don't mind seeing real people in the video, or even if there's not a real person's face, like show me the app, give me screenshots of the app. But you gotta have a little marketing padding around that,
As much as I hate to hear my own voice, if you would watch it, would you watch a few minutes, like a minute now, and see what you think of it?
Yeah.
I mean, let's click play
do
now
it.
and see.
Let's do
I
it.
want to hear what you think. Pause anytime you have a thought.
Okay.
I'm Sam, I made Shuffleboard, and I just want to show you what it's like to run a meeting in Shuffleboard today. So the first thing we're going to do, if we're going to run a new meeting,
I like that you cut right to the chase. Thank you.
Good, good.
As a
Okay.
facilitator is go to getshuffleboard.com. And then I'm just going to click start meeting from one of our pre-existing templates, or maybe a template that you've already set up. We can name our meeting like this week's sprint retro.
I don't need to see that. You can bake show that
Or-
out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when Julia Child said, I'm going to put this in the oven, and then flash to, and here it is. I don't need to see you rename a board.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to
You're
see
done
this
such a good
screen
job.
that we can show the rest of our meeting. So maybe if you're connected.
I'm really showing my persona, right? Of fun or something that you said.
Yeah,
about me.
yeah,
And
you're
then-
getting in it. We're making
Yeah,
it
yeah.
happen. This is useful.
You can put this on the wall. You can cast it to a TV in your meeting room. The point is that everybody's going to see what's happening in your meeting as you run it. And you want to take this link here. This is the share
Yep,
link.
this is too much for me.
That's so funny, 'cause I thought I was going fast.
Yeah, no, I don't need any of that. This
Yeah.
is okay to, what did I just call it, bake show?
This
To,
is-
to cut and say yeah, you start a meeting and then, I
Right,
don't
that's
need
what
to
you
see
just said.
all of these pieces.
Yeah, there's-
It's
yeah.
okay. I'm gonna have to step through those pieces and I'm gonna figure that out, but yeah, I guess I want, sorry, I'll not have
Yeah, yeah.
everybody talking on layers there, but I want to know yeah, you start meetings, then people are emailed the thing or whatever, I don't know how they get the thing,
Right.
but the link, people get links and then you can go or something,
Yeah.
that's, and this is, and here's one, and then, kind of just watch. I'm
Yeah.
editing a video in my head right now,
Yeah.
but then you can go and then you can just show some movement of things. I don't know how they move or if they appear or what happens, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, this is
cool.
Yep, I don't need. Now this is a thing that maybe I would watch later if I'm I can't get started. In a help, I would bury this in a
Right,
help
right,
docs
right.
area to get me started. No, because I still don't quite know what is it going to look like. What am I going to? How is this going to answer all of those things? Right? How is this taking away paper and pencil from me? How is this sharing the things that I really were passionate about, especially were those two, right? Capture ideas quickly in real time and share them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It sounds like this video's job is to answer what is this thing,
Right.
real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Very
If
cool.
it's right there on that front page like that, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. How are we doing?
4:57.
Ooh, okay.
So we should probably wrap.
Yep.
That means next time we will
Yeah, we can do
actually
more.
have you log in and maybe try to run a meeting and see what happens.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I talk so much. We knew this was going to happen.
This is the whole point of the
Yeah,
meeting.
yeah.
You did exactly perfectly.
Well,
What are you? Don't apologize.
We knew that I'm a talker.
That's actually how I measure whether or not I did a good meeting.
Okay,
Because if I
yeah.
talk the whole time, then what are we doing this for?
Right. That's good points. Good points. Mm-hmm.
Well, you did an amazing job. Thank you so much for helping me out. A lot of very dense. I mean, it's. I think it's tough if you don't have the context of the entire project to know. You probably think you're just saying stuff where I'm hearing it and connecting dots to other people. Oh, they said that too, or oh, that's different. I never thought of that. There's so
Yeah,
much
yeah.
good stuff in here you don't even know.
Awesome.
You can watch the video where I watch this meeting and take all the notes.
Oh, how exciting. Yeah. And then, I am happy to do an actual test of the app
Okay, good.
whenever you want.
Good. Well, I appreciate it. I'll probably try to make it better.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
have enough work
You
to
don't
do.
call me until you fix this thing.
Yeah.
That's what I meant to say.
Cool.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sam.
All right, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, audience. Yeah. Of one, maybe, I guess. Just
Probably zero.
No,
It's probably zero. So we're actually in the room here, and Becky's going to show me the mural tool that she mentioned in the video we just did.
Yeah, so what I'm going to try and show you is this was the mural board where we started copying in, and then you can tell where we stopped using this as a retrospective format. But so you'll already get to see how bad I am at
Oh, this is a giant board
this is
itself.
a giant board, but then within the board we have these. See, I can't get the right resolution to show you, and I think if I click on this, maybe it'll get to the right place. So hey, we did pretty well this time. We had a lot in the what went well.
Awesome.
Yeah, a lot of times people like to put things on the line too, things that were good and bad parts about it.
Very
Oh,
interesting.
that's really tough for a group
That is
of-
interesting.
So you can see these are some people using those icons, just +1 items. And then I don't know what the check marks were. I don't remember those. So here you can kind of see how we grouped some in, Ross left and returned. So he must have went on vacation or something. So 2 different people wrote about that, but we grouped them together, right? And here were our actions out of it. Let's keep going, find another one. Oh, somebody used black. That was fun. Oh, but Zach's machine is dying, got a skull, and this got bombs, and so
Yeah, that's cool.
they were having fun with that, but so we were having fun with iconography, but I don't know always know what it
That's
meant.
cool.
Docker. Yeah, we got a little outside the lines. Yeah, one other thing we started doing was we added something we called kvetching corner, because sometimes when you're doing a retro, what you want to come out of the retro are things that you can actionably make some improvement on, whether it's, and sometimes people just needed to say, that really sucked. That thing I worked on really sucked. But then when we'd say, okay, well, what do you want to do about it? There wasn't anything to be done. So we started adding a kvetching corner section so that we could at least still voice those frustrations. Yeah. But when we moved onto the conversation about what actions should we take, we didn't have to look at those cards. So now I'm gonna just open this one because we stopped using Mural for a while, but I'll just kind of show you how somehow over here, the stickies, maybe this one, shapes and connectors, that doesn't sound right. I don't know. Okay, Sam's probably gonna check out Mural on his own because I'm the worst tour guide for this. I think these. Is this no, that's like that's a shape. That's not a sticky. That looks like a sticky. There we are. Text. It was under text. So you can drag a sticky in and then start typing and then click out of it and then there it is. And then you can I think you could duplicate that to have another sticky.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then you saw that lock thing, which was like keep that sticky where it is.
Oh,
so,
gotcha.
Or lock. You can lock shapes and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a giant shape. That like the retrospective box here is a giant shape that we locked, so that we could put all of those on one board. And why we put them all on one board is only because it's kind of cool that we have them all outlined here. Yeah. But the real reason was because the Mural originally just has that giant whiteboard, but shows you just like the top left corner. So we had these stickies are so small. You see this font is so teeny tiny. Yeah. If you were to do a giant board, these stickies are still the same size, right? So you need to still tighten it up to be just something that's on your screen. Yeah. I'm sure there's maybe some way to change the size. Yeah, there's the text. But who wants to do that to these? It says 3x3 and 5x3. I don't know if it's certainly not like 3 pixels. So I don't know what their unit is. What is it? Or if it's just trying to emulate the Post-its that are, or sticky notes that are 3x3. Yeah. Anyway, so nobody wants to do that to a full board site anyway.
Totally. Well, it sounds like there's some definite issues with the sort of pure whiteboard analogy of it's just you can do whatever you want and there's no structure.
Right.
So that's good. That's a sign that shuffleboard might be used.
I've never actually exported, but look at that. It looks like you can export, PDFs and PNGs and a zip of, I don't know what the Mural files are, but you can export to GitHub and Jira. It's interesting. We can export just a certain area. For me, that doesn't work very well because for our retros, the items are often processes, not a new task or a new story. Yeah. But anyway, so I've never used export at all. But
I was curious about export actually.
Yeah. So anyway, more to come. Yeah.
Really cool.
But that was Mural.
We're doing a video of a Trello board retro.
Hi again, sorry. So I had mentioned in earlier discussions with Sam that we used to use Trello to keep track of our retros, and we'd have 2 pictures, one of the boats and then one of the things we should keep, start, or stop doing.
So you got
so we have
a
few retros.
So many whiteboard pictures.
We got a little creative with the boats sometimes. That's like
cool.
A Norse one, maybe an oil tanker, hot air balloon, and a sunken ship, houseboat. I don't know. Looks like we didn't have retro that day, just to bob around the water. But there you have it. That's one other retro thing. And then the other one that I was just talking about that we started recently is these are roads, sorry you probably can't see them, about different health, like how are we doing on having a vision? How are we doing on technical dent? How are we doing on velocity and doing well with planning our sprints? And then here's all these special projects are all the different experiments we're running, how our format for stand-up is, and so we changed it because we often look at focus on the things that are yellow or red. Yeah, yellow, under the weather, red, call the doctor. So, right.
Looking pretty good.
Yeah, so there you go. Those are a couple other retro tools we've tried in the past.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yep.